in Orange County that the mother reported she may have died from fentanyl. So Mr. McElhenney will share more about this topic as part of his presentation on safety this evening, including information about naloxone, a life-saving medication that can reverse the effects of an overdose from fentanyl and other opioids, and it will be on hand at all of our school sites. We've already begun that process to bring that to all of our school sites, including, sadly, our elementary school sites, because students as young as 10 have been impacted by this. So I look forward. Thank you for your work on this, sir, and we look forward to your presentation. On a brighter note, I was happy to see the Orange County Register article on advanced placement and IB scores here in PYLUSD. Advanced placement, and that's International Baccalaureate, is IB from last year. Our AP exam pass rate increased by 7% over last year, and we administered a record number of IB exams in the We're even more pleased that more and more of our students are taking that challenge of adding those time classes to their high school schedule. We believe that when they add that, even just one class like that, they increase their chances for success in four-year college, in two-year college, and in careers because they've exposed themselves to that kind of challenge. So we look. I thank all our teachers for the work they've done in that area. I admire our students for their ability and willingness to challenge themselves. We look to keep on in that same direction. I want to thank our board for their participation last month in our special board meeting where we worked on the Brown Act. I also like to thank Board Member Youngblood for following up, sitting down, and getting the contents today has announced our district. It was a language, practically exact. And then working this out, finally, I had the pleasure of Rick Lopez, enjoy a meal, meet members of cabinet, share about themselves, and learn more about our organization. And we asked each of our new leaders to talk about what they've learned about PYL USD so far. I was struck by this part of the meeting. I just wanted to share some of the things that we heard to describe our organization. People felt supported by their colleagues in our organization. They used the words love, care, and kindness. They reaffirmed that we live by our PYL USD core values. We put our students first. They value the relationships they've already developed, and they know how important relationships are in our culture. They felt seen and valued. That's one of our big pushes for our students to make them feel seen and valued. It was nice to know our new leaders felt the same way. So that made it's what I keep seeing in our district, and that was reaffirmed by that meeting there. And that concludes my report.
Okay, so that now brings us to communications and board report. So Mrs. Freeman, we'll start with you. Thank you. First of all, it wasn't on my notes, but I'm just really glad that the district is moving forward with information on fentanyl, because that is one of the concerns that does come up now, and it's usually tied into the fact that we have Halloween approaching, and we all have seen, I'm sure, the news in other places about the similarity of some of the products that are to candy. So I'm really glad that as we would always do, we're moving forward on both subdivisions. I, on September 14th, had the opportunity, and it's always just, it's always great to go to another district and see what's happening. I went out on behalf of the CSBA to validate a Golden Dove candidate for that award. So I go out as any of us that are asked to do any validation, we go to the site and see what's really happening versus what was submitted in the application and the nomination paperwork. So I visited Anaheim Union High School District, and I
was able to see firsthand their Saturday Language Academy program. And as I said, they've been nominated for this award, which is handed out at the annual education conference in December. This program was created 3 years ago as part of Anaheim Union's board vision and their LCAP goals to increase language acquisition for English learners, plurilingualism, and college preparedness. The number of newcomers in that, as defined by the district, is English learners who have been in the United States 12 months or less. Their number of newcomers has really grown in recent years, so they really needed to address this. The Academy strengthens their skills in the English language in speaking, writing, listening, and reading. And the students explore poetry, short stories, learn about their community and their culture in order to strengthen their own identity. So newcomers often feel they kind of have to leave their identity, their culture, and everything at the door as they come in to our country. But this academy leans into the idea that you don't need to do that. That's part of you. I was really impressed by the full commitment of the Anaheim High School District. The superintendent, Dr. Matsuda, was there. Dr. Renee Bryant, she is the director of plurilingual services, and her team of coordinators and teachers. And also there were 2 professors from Cal State Fullerton, because they do have a partnership with Cal State Fullerton to transform the approach to language acquisition while making newcomers feel less isolated and also included and valued. The success of this program was evident when I had the opportunity to speak to students, because they have found it a great support, and also I appropriated further as to how it helps families, and it does really make the families feel more comfortable as well. One of the most important parts of this was that teachers that come from whatever discipline, like one of the teachers I spoke to that day was a high school science teacher, but she is now teaching in the Saturday Academy. They can own the teachers that go into that program. They only are allowed to teach 2 years, and then they rotate out, going back to wherever their classrooms have been. That allows other teachers to come in and learn more about how to use different strategies with students in the classroom. In short form, let me just touch on something that I know got some publicity, but that was the Melrose Elementary Honda event. That was back on the 21st of September, and I spent a good part of the morning that day with staff and watching the helpful Honda team out there handing out books to every student at Melrose Elementary. Those books were selected by the staff. They were on each grade level received a different book. It wasn't a different book for each student, it was by grade level. But those were selected by the teachers at the school and had it tied into their curriculum and their state standards. We've already touched on the new manager luncheon. I agree, that's always a great opportunity to, first of all, get to know each other a little better. And I agree with the messages that were shared out that morning after the day. Really did reinforce what we hope they're going to find when they come back. It's also been mentioned about women in industry. That was a great opportunity to see not only the panelists, of which 3 of them are graduates of our district, 2 in engineering, 1 you might recognize the name Michelle Granger, who has quite a stellar history in women's softball. The keynote speaker was Kelly Inouye Perez, who is the head coach of UCLA softball, and she was great in her motivational words and also part of the panel. Plus, we had 10 students from our different high schools, female students, who were able to be moderators, put the questions forward to the panel and so forth. So all in all, it was, as it always has been, it's a really positive, motivating event. I'm so glad it continues. The parade was mentioned, yes, 39 bands, and to be honest, after we ended our opportunity to be in the parade, I go back and stand there and watch more of the parade, and then there was this long gap, and I really thought it was over. So I, like many, I went down to all the different booths and stuff. Then I came back up, the parade was still going. There wasn't any people on the sidewalk, and these wonderful student those who, because of alcohol, yeah, probably lost so much of the audience, so it was a great day there. And another thing I got to do, because my other hat is ROP, I was over at Kennedy High School, which is part of Anaheim Union High School District, so Oklahoma, because that's where we had our recent graduation for the vocational nurse program. And that's a really rigorous program, and you can really, when you go to those, you feel the joy in the room because there's such a sense of accomplishment, because they have not only months and months and months and months and months and months of work, but they also have the clinical hours. And so the graduates were the happiest, but believe me, the families and friends out here in the audience of the Kennedy Performing Arts Center were equally really fully charged that night. I can only say, in addition to their hard work and dedication and devotion, we have outstanding educators that deliver that program there in Orange County. And lastly, I just want to say that the Placentia State of the City, that was a really great evening right there on the campus there at El Dorado, because the program, the official program, was held later in the Performing Arts Center. But there were fire trucks, ambulances, squad cars, all kinds of city vehicles, and the jazz band from El Dorado performed to kind of give some ambiance during the part of the evening. And then when everyone went inside to hear the mayor's presentation, the theme was Renaissance. It was really an impressive program. There is so much, considering the challenges that Placentia has had in the history. They are really having a rebirth, and so it's a suitable theme, and it's very, very, very encouraging. And overall, great night. And with that, thank you very much.
Well, good evening, President Bach and the board and community members. I am very happy to be back. The last time I was up here was like in August, so or even before August, it felt like forever. But our last meeting, as you guys know, I was unable to attend. I had gotten my other job had gotten me force hired to go back and work. It seemed that we sent a team out to Ocsba during the mudslides, and what was meant to be a pretty quick turnaround ended up being like 3 days for them digging through 10 feet of mud, and unfortunately ended up being a body recovery for them. They have to find out there. So for all those guys, I felt really bad for them. That can be a pretty traumatic experience, but I did get to watch the meeting here on live stream, which I'm very thankful that we do in the district have that. So once again, yay. As for that, I wanted to also welcome our new student board member. So welcome, Lucy. It's going to be a great time for you guys. Hopefully learn a lot. So welcome. Secondly, let's see, other things that I had done since that time, I was able to go to the leadership, what do you call it, leadership symposium. So the symposium was a collected effort with all of like department heads, and just a very interesting time in which we were broken up into groups and tried to figure out problems and so forth together as a group. So it was a team building type of thing, which was very nice. The team that I was in was, we actually came up second, so I was pretty stoked to be there. And some pretty interesting people for sure. It was nice to connect with these people. Other things, I went to the Mayor's Book Breakfast that was held at the Yorba Linda Community Center. Got to hear Henry DiCarlo speak. Very, very neat guy. Very awesome. It was a great time to be just with other people that were like-minded, that truly realized that this was just a gift for us to be, and we gave thanks for that. So it was a good time was had by all. Also, I wanted to send out it was mentioned earlier, congrats to all the students, all the staff and teachers that helped prepare these students for the IB and AP tests. From what I understand, 4,112 tests were handed out from freshmen all the way up to seniors. And it was a really good showing. We had, I guess there were 80 seniors, which was a new high, which Dr. Matthews was mentioning, that passed the exam, the IB exam. So that was awesome. Congratulations to those students. And it was truly incredible the amount of subjects in which these kids were being tested on. Everything, from calculus to advanced English literature. So very impressive. And I want to continue to push these types of programs for these kids. So even though there was 4,100 or 4,112 students that applied for it, I think we can do better. We can make it more. We can give these kids more opportunities to get these college credits in their pockets. So, also, I got the opportunity to sit in on a Zoom meeting. This was through Cal State University, and it was a Center to close the opportunity gap. So this was basically the doctor that was putting on this program, Dr. McGill Zavala, was talking about ethnic studies and how it fit into the social environment. Truly, I was a little disappointed. Disappointed in the fact that there was probably 100 educators throughout the state that had joined this. And it seemed like the focus was a lot on political, had political language, a lot of that. Matter of fact, one of the ladies that was there, Bettina Love, she was quoted saying, this is to create new systems for education, political, economic, and community freedom. So I wasn't really sure about that. So I was really happy that I listened to the whole program. And they kind of kept beating the drum that there's a circular dimension. And this dimension included social justice teaching, anti-racist and intersectional teaching, ethnic studies content, and eventually social action, which includes civil engagement. So in my question, because we have breakout sessions and so forth, so it wasn't just me ranting, I asked, so is the purpose of these ethnic studies, now granted, Placentia Yorba Linda has done their own due diligence and put together a very, very good program. This was based off of the state program, which Cal State and most of the other colleges that are a part of are using. So I basically, my question was, does this look to try and get kids to become activists? And at that point, they kicked me out. So I didn't get an answer to my question, but I do know that that was probably a little bit of a sting for them. I did receive all of the PowerPoints in which Dr. Zavala was putting out there. So if there is any parents that would like to see this sort of thing, I will be happy to forward that to you. I can tell you, parents, get involved. Look at what your kids are receiving. We can't all catch it all the time, but you're the closest to your kids, and you should be able to see this stuff and let us know if these things are happening, okay? Then from our point, then we can take it to an administrator, a principal, or the teachers themselves, okay? Because we want to make sure that this is all about learning. There was nothing in this particular webcast, this webinar, that was about math, science, reading, which I'm pretty sure in the state we're not doing too great. 60% in some of those cases. I don't know. I was never a K through 12 teacher, but I'm pretty sure 60% is not an A. Okay, we can do better. All right. Other than that, I have been talking with Mr. Matt Linden, and he's going to give you a presentation on fentanyl today. We had an overdose at Downey High School just a couple of days ago with fentanyl. Again, this is becoming more apparent. There are trickier ways of hiding fentanyl, and for those of you that don't really know about the drug itself, imagine 100 times stronger than morphine. Okay, the way the body absorbs it, it doesn't have to be ingested. It can be inhaled through a powder. It can be absorbed through the skin. So some of these things in which we're seeing are pretty frightening. All right, there has been cases in which one dose of Narcan, which is usually about 4 milligrams, 2 to 4 milligrams, depending. It's taken multiple doses of Narcan. I've even seen in hospital, they've had to be placed on a Narcan drip because they will use up that drug. That drug has a kind of a short shelf life, as you might say, in the body. So it'll use it up and the drug will take over again. So scary stuff. So parents be very aware of it. Also, we're going to be looking this Friday, going over to one of our clinics. Is that correct?
Topaz Health Center.
Topaz Health Center, exactly. So we're just going to kind of take a look at that and see some of the things that are the programs that are offered and some of the good things that it provides for the community. Other than that, I don't have much more. That was my full report. Thank you.
Good evening. Since you mentioned Topaz, I was just over there last Friday with Dr. Nancy and Dr. Linden, and we went through the Topaz Health Clinic, and we had a representative from St. Jude there, and who gave us a great tour. Richard also, was very helpful with the questions that we had. A lot of the questions I asked, some of them, they needed to have an attorney, there to answer like the legal questions when you ask about liability and what goes on, in the clinic, things like that. And I also was questioning about the other 2 health clinics that they're looking to put in with St. Jude and then also with the city of Placentia. And so I did make a phone call over to one of the Placentia city councils, and we were just kind of talking about this. And I did ask if there was a reason that we're putting it onto school grounds, and if there was other locations in Placentia that might be feasible and more accessible to the community. So that was kind of one of the things we kind of kicked around in that conversation. But the clinic was great. It's a great resource, and it was a great visit, so I was really happy that I headed over there. So I'm sure you will enjoy it. Another thing that happened actually during my bunco night, a teacher in our district called me and she said, "Why are you trying to take away our pay, our retirement, our benefits? Why would we have to strike for wages? Why are you trying to ban books?" And so I've been saying it for the last 2 board meetings, so I'm going to say it again. I will not try to take away pay. I will not try to take away retirement. I will not try to take away benefits. You won't have to strike for wages. And I'll just have to keep repeating this message over and over again until it's, I guess, heard amongst everyone, because there are certain groups that are sending this message out. And once again, I'm just going to say, as I said last time, I support teachers, I support our staff, I support everybody in the district. I may not support some of the ideas that are coming in from the teachers union in Sacramento,
but I support our teachers, I support staff. Since I've been on the board, we've had 2 pay raises, for our staff. And so what's being said in the schools, what's being said to the community, what's being said is completely false. And so if I'm sitting in, what are we, October? If I'm sitting in November, December, I'll say, you know, till 2024, maybe too. But, so please, and I thank you for these phone calls. And I think that people are actually asking questions because they say some of it just sounds actually, preposterous. In fact, this just came up. I was sitting with a parent who has kids in 2 districts, and they have a parent app, and apparently their board meeting, the whole district gets a text message. Says, hey, well, you know, there's a board meeting tonight if you want to attend at this time. And then they also show, you know, the live streaming process too, and so they have a link to the live stream, which kind of keeps parents more engaged. And so I thought that could be a great idea. And also they said that when a teacher will email the parent, sometimes parents are busy, you don't quite get the email. When the parent can email, it also sends it through as a text message, so then you can view the email as a text. So I'm not sure, I haven't been seeing that with my kids, you know, as far as text, but that would be amazing for somebody like me, because I'm really doing good with some of my emails sometimes. And so maybe if we could try to look into something like that, that might be more helpful, especially with as busy as our parents are. And one more thing too, I have a video I want to play, and there's a couple pictures, and so after the video, I think I have to speak a little bit to this. So what we're seeing was the Esperanza Yorba Linda JV football game the other day, and I tried really hard because I was there to see it. As you can see on the picture on the right, this is the Yorba Linda JV team and the Esperanza JV team. We have a special education student who has been playing football there since his freshman year, and this year he has been involved in the plays. He has been involved in the varsity. As you see on the left, number 50, the captain for the Yorba Linda High School game that night, it was this student. And I just want to give a huge shout out. I know we have a lot of amazing teachers and coaches, and inclusion's been a big part of them, but for something like this is just such an amazing example of inclusion and what our special ed department is all about, and this is what we are seeking, you know, and trying to better ourselves for. And I got a phone call from the student's mom, and this one like really hit home. This student wasn't feeling great one morning, and was kind of just deciding, should I go to school or not? And they're kind of debating, and maybe you should stay home. And he says, no. He says, Mom, I'm going to go to school, and my teammates are going to take care of me. And so, just knowing that this student has had this opportunity, and I will say the head coach of Esperanza is J.P. Presley, and he is a special education teacher. And so he understands this, and I just really thank him for giving this kid such an experience, and for for believing in him, and having this student believe in himself. It's just been an amazing thing. Just to see this progression has just been amazing. And I mean, there's been a couple instances where he's been involved in certain sports, and everybody's looking in the audience, they tell her, you're not crying. You know, I'm not crying, you're not crying. Like, we're just crying because it's just such a thing to see. And so I just wanted to bring this up tonight because I just think that we should every student every day is kind of something that I've been saying since 2020, and this is just such a great representation of inclusion and believing in oneself. And wherever this student goes in his life, he's going to have these memories. But not only that, is these teams like Yorba Linda High School, their bench cleared and ran down the field with him. Esperanza's bench cleared and they ran down. And then now he says, I'm going to go to school today, even though I'm not feeling great, because my teammates are going to take care of me. And so that's just a special thing, and I'm just so appreciative. And I'm glad I didn't kind of get teary-eyed tonight, because I was, when I was writing my thing here and sending the video, I was a little teary-eyed. And so another thing I wanted to kind of, with all of this and with the video and bringing it back in, I know last month I talked about the months. We have our 9 or 10 months where we celebrate different groups. And sometimes my statements get misstated to public or what I meant. But when we look at things like this, and we talk about the students in our campuses, and what my intention, what my thoughts were the last time is, instead of focusing on 10 months of a group or 2, we should be focusing on all students like this. Because when we just generalize, like, do our students know each other, and do we have the type of care that this football team has done with this one student? Do we know who's sitting next to each other in our classrooms? And so my intention is not to take away months or to do things. It's how can we better implement that all of our students are noticed and all of our students are recognized? And how do we facilitate these type of relationships where we feel our students are just taking care of each other and we really know each other? Like, I have one of my sons at Yorba Linda High School. We have a carpool partner that, they're the Muslim religion. And since we know them well, we talk to them, we know that there's certain times during Ramadan that we're going to drive a certain carpool a certain time because they've been fasting all day. And they need to feed their young kids. And so because we know them, because we've been invested and we learn more about them, we understand and we know more about their religion, we know about their culture, we know about them. And so that's the things I'm talking about. It wasn't to take away groups and take away months. It was to say there's more than 10 groups, religions, ethnic groups in these classrooms. And so are we taking the time to recognize all the students? And are we taking the time in the classrooms to, get to know them? Or are we focusing on maybe people that have passed away or are, public figures somewhere? I think we should focus on our students. That's how you have these relationships, and that's how you get to know each other. And when we focus on our students, when we focus on the needs and the acceptance and just really getting to know them as a person, even if they're different skin color, religion than you, I feel like that's when we all come together. And so that was my intention when I made this statement last month. And then I thought, well, I'm going to clarify that tonight so everyone knows where I was coming from. And so once again, I just want to thank the Esperanza, head coach and the entire team and all of the teachers and the coaches and the staff who are making a difference and are doing things like this. And we might not all see it, but we recognize it, and you're very much appreciated. And then finally, another thing that I think we should also think about too is maybe having some term limits on our board. I know our city council does 3 terms and they have 12 years max. And I know that that's been something that's been asked about. And so I think maybe we should, in the next few months, start thinking about, is it in the best interest of our community and our board and our schools to have some term limits? And that is the end of my board report.
Education world in full swing, and it has been a very busy month since the last meeting. And I'm just going to touch on a lot of things that I've been working on. I've listened to a podcast on reading. I've been reading lots of articles on reading and science of reading, and I've just really been enjoying these and trying to understand, the science behind reading and more. And so I look forward to keep diving deep. And actually today I read a nice article that said we are actually doing that. We listed some of the materials that are based on science and reading.
I was like, yay, win. I attended the CSBA seminar on the Belfrost, and we discussed a lot of different topics, but I think some of the interesting one was literacy coaches. Of course, we're going to focus on reading specialists, college and career pathways, and bills that have just been signed and how they're going to impact our schools, and also some of the challenges that we might be seeing next year because already the tax revenues are already down. It was mentioned the new manager's luncheon, and I concur with what was said. I loved all the exciting messages from our new leaders and how excited they are to be here with us. And I'd just like to thank the Human Resources Department for putting that all together. I attended the Women in Industry, and my favorite thing about going to school is seeing our kids shine. And our kids shine from production to freshmen to asking questions to leading, and it was really exciting to see them in their element and to watch them work. Besides, the message was totally appropriate and great, and I had a few young friends in the audience, and they're like, "We're coming next year." I'm like, "Yeah." And I think even one friend group will last a week. I attended the Yorba Linda High School versus Esperanza football game, and congratulations to Yorba Linda High School. And I wanted to bring this up. I witnessed a really lovely act of sportsmanship that night. One of the Esperanza players was injured, and after they were assessed on the field and then put on the cart, all the players from Yorba Linda High School that were on the field went over and gave that player a fist bump. And I really think that says a lot about our coaching staff and our students. And I really love seeing that great example of sportsmanship. I also attended the Heritage Day Parade, and it was just, it's a thing of mine since I was a little girl. So I love it. I love hearing our bands, and I love seeing a lot of our families and parents on the parade ground, and all the support that they give us. And I just wanted to shout out to those parents that are behind the band students, that are carrying the water and helping with the uniforms and the instruments, because these programs wouldn't be possible without the parents. So shout out to parents. I also attended the Placentia State of the City and enjoyed hearing the Elder Water Choir perform as well as the jazz band. And again, I love seeing our students shine. I was able to do 3 school visits. First was to Linda Vista, and I'd just like to say wow about that middle slide. I really wanted to go on it, but I was trained, so there was no incident report. I didn't want to give her any more work to do, and it was really fun. I saw some old friends, and even a teacher of my son's way back in the day at Kramer. I got to see firsthand how all these extra COVID funds are being spent. I got to visit with the registered behavior specialist, and she kind of talked me through all the interventions and all the help she's doing. And this is what I love most about school site visits is, we do our work here, and then when we go to the school, it's like putting the puzzle pieces together. You get to see it really in action and really appreciate what's being done. And I just love that. I also, they were praising their resident sub, and they really enjoyed the flexibility and the use of him, and so love that. I went to Maple Plain, and their school, of course, is very welcoming and upbeat. I learned when I was touring Maple Plain, it happened to be during language arts, so I actually got to see all the benchmark materials and see all the annotating, and it was, I think Dr. Adams mentions benchmark almost every time, and I actually got to see it in action, so it was really fun to see that. I got to see kids doing hands-on learning in their STEM lab on the floor, collaborating together. And I also made a special friend in special ed preschool. I walked in the door, he quickly ran up to me, grabbed my hand, and toured me around the room, we did the hokey pokey, it was great, I took them to lunch. I got a friend for life now, and I love it. I went to Rose Drive, and my first impression of Rose Drive was just really to focus on kindness. I came on Kindness Day, so all the teachers were wearing kindness shirts. Wish everybody got the memo because I have one, and I could fit in really well. But not only just with the shirts, is they had big thank you notes written on their doors and on their walls to the custodians, thanking them for keeping their school clean. And so not only do they talk about it, but they really do it, and I love that. They have a kind of a culture of scholars. You know, they're not students, they're scholars, and I love what that means. I've learned more about the PYL program, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically they house all the kids that are in preschool that are in speech, and they see about 80 students there, and their service there, and it's kind of in a preschool setting, but it is speech therapy. Also, big shout out to maintenance facility because they love their new carpet, and every teacher pointed it out to me and how grateful they were, and so thank you guys for making that happen. And this is the part that got me the most is they've had several students that are recent immigrants from Ukraine. And I watched this one kindergarten student latch on to their teacher. They'd only been in the country for 3 weeks, and I can't imagine, they didn't even come straight from Ukraine, they did some time in Mexico and then here. And I just really loved the outpouring of love and extra attention given to the student, letting him acclimate to his surroundings. And I also attended my very last, this is a big smile, Master in Governance course, and so I am an official graduate. I'm very excited to be done with it, and I'm grateful for the program that really teaches us how to do good governance. This last class, we worked on authentic community engagement, effective communication planning, including crisis, and how to be an effective communicator, and how to be an advocate, how to turn many voices into one. And so I think those are great skills for board members to have and resources to utilize. So that's the end of my report. Thank you.
So I'll make mine a little bit shorter. So I went to the Student Mental Wellness Conference. It's in San Diego, but I did the virtual tour this time, did a couple of days, got some great tips that I'm able to share with some of our staff. Just little simple things that teachers and counselors can use with working with kids, working in the classroom to keep them engaged. So I'll share that along. You mentioned the OCSBA legislative seminar, which was really great. It was nice to see a bunch of legislative items that we had been advocating for the last couple of years through CSBA, and to see some of those actually get signed into law and adapted and changed based on how we wanted to have that impact schools here in our local community. Went to back to school night at Yorba Linda High School, which was great. I think we've had so many of those at the beginning of the school year, and they kind of trickled off since our last meeting, but that one was after our meeting. Went to the Yorba Linda High School Eldo football game, and women in industry. One thing that wasn't mentioned, Placentia has a VA outpatient clinic that just opened up last week. It's over off of Placentia Avenue over by Sam's Club, and it is beautiful. Veterans can come in and get blood work done. They do minor surgery there. I didn't know that we had one at all, and now this one is a new facility that they just opened. Thank you, Richard, for letting me know that the crosswalk at Valadez has been painted, and signs are there. I'm looking forward to the next iteration of that, where they're going to add the lighting and things, but it took a year to get there. But I'm so glad that we do have a crosswalk there that's available for students. It's a dangerous sort of area, and that's really nice that we have that, and a crossing guard coming. I went to a couple of school visits. I went to Kramer Middle School last week and saw our new science in action. Watched all the experiments that they were doing in class. They were working on bath bombs when I was in there, and they were making them. So they had all the different ingredients all separated out, and they were talking about each one of those and looking at how each one of those changes the composition of those bath bombs, and then they were making them all together, and then so that they could then put them in water and watch how they dissolve. That was really fun to watch. I got to see social science, AVID class, ASB, and Spanish. I don't know if any of you know Mrs. Philipescu at Kramer, but I am not a Spanish speaker. I can understand some of it, but I'll walk into that class and she makes it so easy I can understand everything that she says. She really is remarkable. So shout out to her. I then went to Rose Drive at the beginning of this week and went into Mrs. Willie's class. And they were working on stories, and it was a game almost, but they start with a certain topic, and like a motorcycle, for example, and they have to start writing on this motorcycle and their story. And a few minutes later, there's another button that they push, and it rotates through all kinds of topics and ideas, and another thing will pop up. For example, a pile of books. So then they have to take that story and talk about a motorcycle, and then move it into the pile of books and incorporate that. And then a few minutes later, the next one pops up, and it really is developing some amazing creative writing. One of the students wrote his, and when he got up and read it to the class, he actually he rapped it. And she said you've never seen that before. When you look at it, I would never do it justice. I will not even try. But you can actually see the cadence of it and how he went through. And to add that bit of creativity on top of just writing a creative story, it was really fun to watch. And they loved this. She says they ask for it all the time, but they all get excited about it, and they talk about the different ways that their new idea is unfolded into that story. So it was really fun. I had a great time. They also talked about the resident subs at both schools. The resident sub is helping in so many ways, just come in and step in when things are needed. When we have people out, when they need a little extra group time, I'm really glad that we have those in there. And I thank you for saying what you did about the holidays and the months. That has created definitely some fear in the community. I got a number of phone calls. I'm worried that was something that we are going to be discussing, and even to the point where it has caused some even further angst from some of our local community college, or from Pastor College and from our college. So I like the clarification that you want to make sure and include everybody, that we're not talking about not including them. So I do appreciate the clarification. And that's it for me. Thank you. Brings us to public comment. We have a few speakers here. We have to 12. So 2 minutes? 2 minutes? If you could set your. I'm going to call 3 at a time so you can get ready on deck. And then we can go through. If you will restate your name when you come up to the podium, that would be helpful.
Is that okay?
So first will be
Sure.
Jenny Brimmer, Paula Powers,
Yep.
and
Should be
Sarah
right.
Phillips will start.
But I'm sorry. Got so much stuff happening. I'll come back. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Bremer, and I'm a teacher at Colorado High School. I'd like to address a few things. Ms. Blades really talked about a lot of things that you talked about in your report, which I appreciate. Among U.S. history and world history, I also teach our new multicultural studies class at El Dorado High School. We have 28 students enrolled. Nice big class. My students asked if they can support our diversity and our heritage months at school. And so I said, sure, we can do a project for that. So I wanted to share with you what they came up with for their mission statement, which I think will help you understand the importance and the purpose of these Heritage Months. This is written by the students, not me, this is by my students. Our mission in El Dorado is to curate a safe learning community by educating all generations about adversity and diversity. By using our differences as a gateway for unity rather than division, we can learn to not only appreciate but accept what makes every member of our community unique. By taking a deep dive into exploring different cultures, we can create a community where every voice is heard because we educate our people to listen. With fair and equal representation, we can ensure that El Dorado becomes an environment where everyone feels safe, heard, and recognized. That is what the students see in these Heritage Months. We have actually spent 2 class periods working on this. They started with their mission statement and the September celebrations, and they worked on October this month. And at the end of the second period, I taught my U.S. history class. I went over to my desk to do my attendance, and I found this little green Post-it, which I think I sent to pretty much everybody at this table. And it was unsolicited, just a Post-it. We didn't use Post-its that day. I don't know where the kid got a Post-it. I put it on my desk with no words. And what it said was, "This is the only reason I get to school. I know I can make it through the day if I start in this class."
Comments, I'm sorry, I have to finish.
So, I would like to just say a word of thanks to everybody. My husband and I would like to take a moment to thank the PYLUSD Village for their support in helping our daughter make it to senior year at Esperanza High School. I'm amazed at how quickly the time has flown by, and it seems like just yesterday we dropped her off at kindergarten. Thank you to each person who took the time to make her day a little easier. We're thankful to the child care staff who watched her while we worked, and to the support staff at each school who nurtured her when she was sick or needed some TLC. We're so fortunate to have had teachers that saw her for more than her test scores. Thank you for her smiles you gave her, the moments you took to connect with her, and the lessons that you taught her. Her path has not always been an easy one, but we appreciate you for valuing our little girl enough to never give up on her. Whether you directly interacted with her or were part of the decision-making body that forged her path, thank you. I believe that it takes a village to raise a child. It's a team effort, and we're fortunate to be part of a district that's dedicated to making each child feel noticed, needed, and nurtured. It's no coincidence that an overwhelming number of district employees send their own children to our schools. They know how special this district is. Thank you for sharing my daughter's success. You're an important part of it. After Sarah, I have Jonathan Greenquist, Judy Reese, and Lynn Manning.
Good evening, one and all. My name is Sarah Phillips. I'm the librarian at Yorba Linda High School. Tonight I want to talk about reading, and Marilyn, we seem to be on the same wavelength. Specifically reading for pleasure and personal growth. Reading generally drops off for personal growth or pleasure in middle school and high school for many reasons. And I want to mention that our school newspaper, The Wrangler, had a great article titled "Reading for the Sake of Reading" by Magdalena Aparicio that was published October 9th, which talks about the drop-off in reading and that it's not too late to find that love again. Here are the benefits to our youth for making time to read for pleasure and free choice. Increased reading attainment and writing ability, increased text comprehension and grammar, breadth of vocabulary, positive reading attitudes, self-confidence as a reader, and pleasure in reading later in life. And there are benefits for adults too. Readers of fiction have increased creativity, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Losing yourself in a fictional character's experiences can make us more open-minded and allow us to spend time in someone else's shoes. Reading boosts brain power, creating cognitive engagement, and can help when things like memory and brain function lessen as we get older. Reading supports self-improvement. We often tell children readers are leaders, and there's definite truth to that. The YLHS Library is all about supporting lifelong learning, and one of the best ways to do that is to pick up a book and learn something new. Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Bluquist. I'm a parent for PYLUSD, have two kids at Golden. I have a question here. I found something out here that I want to get some answers on. Back in 2011, the school board members had voted without public notice to borrow $22 million. And basically was one of those loans where you don't have to pay for the first 20 years. But then after 20 years, you're paying 7.8%. which compounds 13 times the original borrowed amount, which basically comes out to $282 million. The two people that were voted for that was Carrie Buck and Karen Freeman. I don't know why, but as I heard earlier about term limits, I definitely think that that's something that needs to be taken into consideration here, considering I think people over time are not making good decisions for our community and our school district and our money. So I think that's something that should be taken into consideration when people come to vote this year. And I've noticed today when I'm driving to work, I pass by Van Buren Elementary every day. As I'm going down the street, normally there's no cars parked in front of the school because it says you can't park there for the buses. Today I see, I assume staff vehicles with election signs. I didn't know that you could do that, but it encroaches on the street. You're not supposed to park there. It makes more traffic, and I just don't know whether that's right or not. But I just think that's something that needs to be looked at. And also, I've also seen quite a few times people tampering with election signs. And I mean, I've seen with my own eyes people taking. I saw an Eagle sign being removed and a Carrie Buck sign put where the Eagle sign was. Why are we doing that? But I mean, that's dirty politics, in my opinion. But just so people know. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. That was close, but just keep our comments about campaigning at least to let's keep it out of public comments. And if anyone has a question about what's legal about campaigning, you can talk to me about that. I did post a thing on our website about what's right and what districts can and cannot do with campaigning, so I'm happy to answer those questions. But thank you all for your help.
Judy Reese, Glen Knoll Elementary School. Oh yeah, I guess I've been a topic of conversation. I don't know who that person is. I was made aware in my school, I had a conversation with a friend of mine and had lunch with them who said that in our neighborhood around the corner from my school, one of our parents, they knocked on the door, they were approached, and that one of the trustees was with this person, and that they began telling this woman with her grandchild, who is a student at our school, that they shouldn't have their child, that grandchild, in our schools because our schools are terrible. They're going downhill, they're not good. They didn't specifically name teachers, but I would have to say that teachers are the backbone of our schools. So I would say that if you think that our schools are going downhill, then that's really what you're saying, is that the teachers are not good. And in addition to say that to a child who has just started, she's in transitional kindergarten, so it's her very first year in school, to hear that. This is a really terrible message and does not make teachers feel that they're supported by their board members, that the board members are not on their side, and that they probably really don't even understand what's happening inside the classroom. Another comment was that things are being taught in kindergarten that you wouldn't believe. But I'm going to tell you one thing we do teach. We teach the kids to treat others the way they would like to be treated. We teach them to only have kind things to say, and that if you don't have anything nice to say, then just don't say anything. We teach that. So I would appreciate that same consideration from board members.
Next is Linda, followed by Sam, Pam, and Sarah Caballero.
Linda Mannion, Apple, good evening. A recent survey of K-12 teachers across the state found that most teachers surveyed are suffering from burnout. When asked to describe their jobs, teachers that were surveyed responded with things like, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed, the workload is overwhelming. As a result, the survey showed that 40% of the teachers said they may switch occupations, and another 20% said they will likely leave the profession in the next 3 years. That's pretty horrifying when you think about it. We have wonderful teachers. How are we treating them? California and the rest of the nation is facing a critical teacher shortage. The time is coming when communities will be competing with each other just to be able to fill their classrooms. To attract and retain high-quality teachers, teacher salaries will have to be competitive, and teacher working conditions must be optimal. The supply and demand issue of available teachers is clearly there to see, and yet attacks continue on teachers and making teachers feel that they really aren't valued. The children in our community have one chance at their K-12 education to prepare them for the future. We have amazing teachers out there ready to take that on, ready to provide that education. But the continual attacks that we're hearing on teachers are doing nothing but threatening to increase the likelihood that teachers will leave the profession. Our kids deserve a quality education. They deserve these quality teachers, and teachers deserve a supportive community. Let's stop these attacks on teachers before there are no teachers left to attack.
I know this has been somewhat addressed, but I'm going to read my comment anyway. My name is Shani. Last month, I thanked the district for its new diversity and inclusion calendar. I didn't think it was a controversial comment because who would have a problem with a school celebrating things like Hispanic heritage, disability awareness, and Black history. But during the board reports, Leandra Blade said she had concerns about celebrating these themes because she was worried that some students might feel left out. I know you addressed this a little bit tonight, and thank you. But I just want to say I reached out to the district to learn more about the calendar, and I want to make sure everybody knows, because I don't think Leandra mentioned this, that January is Kindness and Inclusion Month, and it will feature the Great Kindness Challenge. So I just want to once again thank the district for creating a calendar that has something for everyone, ensuring that every student feels noticed, needed, and nurtured. And I think that the individual stories that you highlighted are wonderful, and I think the calendar just enhances that. It doesn't take anything away. So thank you.
Hello, board. My name is Sarah Caballero, and I just want to talk to you really quick. And actually, I'm going to divert my attention to Dr. Matthews. I apologize. And I have to say thank you very much for actually listening to the parents and coming to the board with some additional information that you've researched. So I'm going to bring this one to you because I'm hoping that you can maybe do a little bit of research on this one for me personally. So I have some nieces and nephews that go to elementary schools, and I know the gentleman talked about it earlier with regards to taking up public spots for parents to pick up and drop off with students. It's creating a huge safety issue. And what we're finding is that the spots are being taken by cars that are being left there with campaign signs and so forth. And unfortunately, it's creating a safety issue with the children. Parents are having to park further away. And then when you look at the parking lot for the actual school, there's nobody in the assigned seat, like in their assigned stalls. So I know, for instance, my niece and my nephew who go to the current elementary school, this was a problem. There was a complaint to the principal, and the principal, I don't know if it got heard, but the wonderful thing I can say is the very next day, all the stalls were back in the parking lot, which is great. And so the public spots were open. but I do know that there's a couple more elementary schools with this as a problem. So it would be preferable to a parent to help and make sure that there's safety for the children, that they're not cluttering up the other streets where we really need to not be. So, thank you.
Then Mark, then Patricia.
In 2021, I spent a great deal of time fighting the district about lowering the crazy high facility fees. I wasn't going to mention this, but because the superintendent brought it up, I'll mention that I did a FOIA request in 2021 because I was trying to figure out why the pool at Yorba Linda High School was in such abysmal shape. I learned that the district collected $225,000 in facility rental fees at Yorba Linda High School for the pool, but they actually spent $0 on maintaining the pool. The boosters, the parents, paid for everything, so there's your answer. During that time period, I really wondered what kind of people are in charge of the school district, because in 2019, the board approved of higher fees. They didn't do any research, and they even paid a consultant 100% of the contract fee when the consultant only did 50% of the work. Now I have some answers on what kind of people would make such stupid decisions. Trustee Buck, for example, is executive director of a nonprofit called His House. Public records show she seems to use it as a way to curry favor with district employees. For example, in April 2018, the principal of Mabel Payne emailed Buck about organizing a His House fundraiser at school using school employees, school facilities. In February 2015, Alyssa Griffiths wanted to organize an event at Topaz and Wagner that would involve His House. December 2021, El Camino Real wants Buck to discuss how the school has partnered with His House. October 2019, the PYL print shop emails about printing an 8-foot by 8-foot banner. No mention of payments. June 2019, His House used soccer fields at Valencia. Did His House pay the facility rental fee? There was no mention of payment. October 2018, the principal of Lakeview put together a team of 29 Lakeview staff members to serve His House. There are also lots of emails from staff wanting to donate. I don't think a board member should be able to use district facilities and staff to benefit them personally. Thank you.
Oh.
My name is Mark Ferry. I've spoken here quite a few times, and if you don't remember, I've lived here for 60 years. My mother taught kindergarten at Rose Drive Elementary School for 25 years. I've changed the direction of my talk tonight because my mother, who's 94 years old, has just gone into hospice. And my last conversation with her, she wanted to make sure that I passed her feelings on to this group. Some of you aren't going to want to hear it, especially some of the teachers.
So rude.
But she had some very astute comments back in May of 2020. She was so disappointed that the teachers felt like they were not essential workers. Liquor stores were, a lot of other businesses, but the union had such a great influence on shutting the schools down. And for the record, Florida opened up their schools in August of 2020. So she also asked me, how did the unions get involved in curriculum? They used to be there for making sure that teachers had great benefits and great pay. And I think everybody up here supports the teachers, and nobody is trying to take away any pay or any benefits. But where we do have disagreement is when it comes to curriculum, and we will continue to have those open discussions. She had no idea that her union dues all those years were going to the Democratic Party. She asked me if there are any Republicans that are teachers. And I said, I'm not sure, but they're afraid to speak out. So let's be clear, the last board meeting, there were a lot of teachers in this back snickering when people were talking about things going on in the schools. And some of them are really going on. So please be aware, the teachers have to hold each other accountable. Critical race theory has been banned from the schools. So if you see anybody doing it, you have an obligation to point it out. So, and then another thing is, okay, I'm sorry about time, but just
Please conclude your comments.
just a quick math class.
Please conclude your comments. You don't have any more time.
No,
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Patricia Hanzo, and I know today we're going to hear a report on safety from our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. McAlinden. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how our communication and the way we treat each other, if we have mutual respect, then we would all grow together and grow this district. What we need is for the board and employees to be pro-student, pro-ethnic studies, pro-educator, pro-principles. We don't need to get a morality check on principles. We ask that decisions by the district and by this board embrace all students and teachers, give a strong curriculum, helpful tools, and useful contractors. Just give teachers and librarians the requested vetted tools and fund current programs. Avoid watering down lessons, criticizing cultural observations, and stop the gag orders. School safety is dependent on good communication and mutual respect. Excluding groups of children is wrong. Do not alienate communities, the poor, religious groups, ethnic populations, and struggling children. We denounce the use of religion and politics in school board decisions. Stop using our students as pawns and sound bites. Show good manners and follow the Brown Act protocols. In the long run, this will also help us attract intern students to become new teachers. And I want us to attract counselors and psychologists. And it's sad that a lot of folks might look at the news articles coming out of this district and decide not to come to our schools and not become new teachers and not become new counselors because of the lack of respect to our educators, our students, and our families. Thank you.
Steph B. Steph
Oh,
S.
me? Sorry, I couldn't hear what I was talking. Is it just me now?
Yeah, it's just you.
Hi. So, I didn't really know what to say. Someone asked me to speak. What I can say is people are respected in this district because if you come to Travis Ranch and Dr. Matthews was there a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago for Jogathon, our kids love the counselor that we brought onto campus, that you guys supplied us with. It is the safest space on that campus, and those kids are thriving, which we could not have said a year ago. So thank you for that. Thank you for this whole presentation on fentanyl, because you know what? My oldest just lost one of his best friends to it up in Alabama. And it has been all over the news. Everyone in this room has probably seen it. So as we're sitting here talking, there are only so many people in this room, in this district, that can do so many things at once. And you know what? They do. They've said it before. I don't have to agree with every person up here, but they prioritize what they find necessary. If you want to sit here and talk about inclusion, you have to accept that one day or another, it's gonna happen. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's not gonna happen overnight in this room. It's not gonna happen overnight in this country. But if we're only just gonna sit here and say, you're wrong, it's never gonna happen. I've said this before. If you guys want to fix things, find a way to work together. They're working to fix problems. It's not gonna happen overnight. Everybody wants the best. People have different opinions of what the best is, but they're working for a greater good. They really are. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to agree with everybody on politics. But we are all striving for the best future for our children, whether you are a teacher in this room, someone sitting in this room, or a parent. Everybody wants the best. We don't need to sit here and attack all night. We really don't. We need to say thank you for the good that they are doing. Because every single one of them has a part in that. Thank you.
Okay, so now that brings us to our staff presentation and what we've all been waiting for. For sure on you. Mr. McAlinden.
Well, thank you and good evening. Thank you, President Buck. I would like to start tonight's presentation by thanking the board for their ongoing commitment to supporting safety and wellness-related initiatives over the past several years. Tonight, we will have an opportunity to review several key initiatives which help contribute to a safe learning environment for our students and staff. It is important to recognize the collective effort of our site leaders and each district division for their part in implementing these important initiatives. We see this as the most important work we do. There are two primary objectives to this presentation. First, we will review several safety and wellness initiatives implemented over the past 8 years. We will review key initiatives from each of the 7 sections outlined in our comprehensive plan, and will highlight the impact some of these initiatives have had on our school campuses. Second, we will focus on current year initiatives that have either been implemented or are in the process of implementation. While tonight's presentation will highlight a few of our safety-related initiatives, it is important to note that a more comprehensive list of initiatives is currently available to our school community on our district website at pylusd.org/safety. When we take a look at the different components of school safety, we have identified 7 distinct areas which are represented on this slide. They include emergency preparedness, emergency response, staff and student education, parent education, behavioral support, mental and emotional wellness, and physical health. Each specific area will be addressed in our presentation tonight as we review some of our district-wide initiatives. To start, over the next few slides, we will highlight initiatives implemented from 2013 to the present. We will start with our efforts in the area of emergency preparedness. Each classroom has been outfitted with essential supplies to be used in the event a school has an extended lockdown. These lockdown kits have been maintained over the years as expired supplies have been replenished as needed. All campuses are equipped with search and rescue equipment, which will allow search and rescue teams to better respond during an emergency event. Finally, at the recommendation of law enforcement, all campus supervisors have been provided with uniform shirts, resulting in easier identification and increased visibility on secondary campuses. All schools have also been equipped with mobile command center, as well as apparent reunification equipment to be used in a school-wide emergency event. Local law enforcement has been provided digital maps in an effort to familiarize emergency responders with key locations such as student evacuation areas, parent reunification areas, gas shutoff valves, and building locations. Door block devices have been installed on over 2,300 doors across the district to expedite the locking of classroom doors in the event of an emergency. The device allows each door to remain in the locked position throughout the day, while still allowing students to enter or exit the classroom. In an emergency, the device is disengaged, allowing the door to be locked and secured without the need to search for keys. Emergency response drills such as fire evacuation, duck and cover, and lockdowns are conducted multiple times throughout the year. We have improved our exterior lighting fixtures with LED lighting to improve visibility on campuses in the evening hours. Over 100 security cameras have been added to our middle and high schools to help improve security and protect school property. The cameras have assisted school staff in responding to several safety-related initiatives since their implementation. Finally, 6-foot numbers have been painted on the roof of each school building to provide responding police officers with points of reference, resulting in better communication between the officers in the police helicopter and first responders on the ground. School sites establish procedures for visitors on campus, which include the use of the School Access Management System, or SAM for short. This system screens visitors against the National Sex Offenders List and allows staff to manage custody and restraining orders. The system allows schools to manage visitors on campus and generates easily identifiable name badges indicating that the visitor has permission to be there. Since its implementation, school staff has successfully prevented SAM system identified individuals from accessing school campuses. We continue our safety efforts to add fencing and panic bar hardware at several school sites to provide better security. Next, we will look at the key initiatives essential to effective emergency response. The first is the establishment of lockdown protocols to ensure consistent response from law enforcement. School staff has been trained over the past several years to learn common language related to lockdown procedures. Procedures are updated as best practices are shared by law enforcement experts. In addition, each school has established a safety committee responsible for the development and annual update of their safe school plan as required by state law. In the area of staff and student education, all ninth grade students taking the health elective receive basic CPR training, equipping them with skills needed for basic emergency response. In addition, our nursing staff has provided district staff with CPR, EpiPen, and AED training 8 times a year. Finally, staff participated in a district-wide training on bullying prevention and how to respond when incidences are reported. In the area of parent education, a variety of topics have been presented through the district's parent university. Classes are offered in the areas of parenting, safety, academic support, and college and career guidance. They are offered throughout the year at no cost to our families. All secondary schools have been provided a confidential text-to-tip line to report safety-related issues to administrative school staff. Students receive this resource annually, and their specific number has been printed on the back of each secondary ID card. Through a coordinated effort from our special education and educational services divisions, a comprehensive student study team has been established at each school site in an effort to coordinate resources for at-risk students. All secondary sites have established an intervention elective class called Gear Up in an effort to provide direct support to students in need. All schools have established a positive behavioral interventions and support program, otherwise known as PBIS, in an effort to create clearly defined behavioral expectations on every campus. School sites have seen the positive impact of a well-designed program as it relates to increased student engagement and a decrease in problematic behavior. Our schools have done an exceptional job implementing PBIS on their campuses. Well, earlier this year, 5 of our campuses were distinguished by the California PBIS Coalition for excellence in implementing PBIS on their campuses. Rose Drive Elementary School earned the Platinum Implementation Award. Fairmont and Maple Plain Elementary Schools have earned the Gold Award, and Melrose and Woodsboro Elementary Schools have earned the Silver Award, respectively. A district centralized alternative to suspension program was established and utilized for students in grades 6 through 12. Schools also added site-level interventions in lieu of issuing an at-home suspension. Finally, 24 full-time registered behavioral technicians were hired to support our elementary classrooms by providing direct support to our teachers in managing behavioral issues. Our teachers have reported that this has been an invaluable resource in managing disruptive behaviors and maintaining an effective learning environment. The combined impact of these interventions has helped reduce the overall suspension rate across the district, as well as the number of suspension days. In the area of mental and emotional wellness, the district has made significant investment to ensure our students and families have access to the support they need. We have provided school counselors at the secondary level for years and have a long-standing relationship with Outreach Concern to provide counseling support at our elementary school sites. While these supports are accessed by students during the day, there are occasions where families are in need of support outside of the school day. Care Solace is a referral resource used by our families to help access effective, confidential counseling support in a variety of issues. Over the past 2.25 years, 842 families have been able to connect with mental health support using this very resource. Recognizing the increased mental health needs of our students across 3 grade spans, the district has significantly increased support through the hiring of elementary counselors and wellness specialists. You will note our significant investment in this area at the elementary level as we recognize the need to focus on early intervention. By providing direct intervention at the younger grade levels, our hope is to prevent issues from increasing in severity as students get older. In the area of physical health and wellness, our health services team, in partnership with educational services, has developed return to learn concussion protocols for students returning to the classroom following a concussion. These protocols allow for flexibility and accommodations while the student makes progress towards full recovery. In an effort to deter students from bringing illegal substances to school, the district partnered with InterQuest Canines to provide periodic visits of drug detection dogs at all high school sites. Finally, in the area of emergency response, we have added EpiPens and automated external defibrillators, otherwise known as AEDs, at all school sites in the event there is a medical emergency involving anaphylactic reactions or sudden cardiac arrest. Volunteer staff have been trained by our nurses in the use of this life-saving equipment. Next, we will provide a brief overview of safety-related initiatives currently being implemented in the 22-23 school year. Both middle and high school staffs are in the process of being trained in the area of suicide prevention. In addition, 7th, 9th, and 12th grade students are receiving a similar age-appropriate presentation on the very same topic. Staff at all grade levels are currently receiving training from local law enforcement on updated procedures relative to run, hide, fight protocols. Both trainings began in September and will continue through March of next year. In an effort to increase campus security in the event of a lockdown, we are developing a plan to install a safety device referred to as a barricade. This device is recommended by law enforcement and will allow staff to secure interior pod doors during the lockdown. This added safety feature will provide school staff with options on how to secure interior building doors. As Dr. Matthews mentioned earlier tonight under his superintendent's report, in light of increased opioid use across the country, our district health services team is working to provide naloxone, more commonly known as Narcan, to all school sites. This life-saving device may be used to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose that would be available to trained staff for emergency response. Our nurses have submitted our application to the naloxone distribution project through the California Department of Health and Human Services Agency, and we anticipate receiving the naloxone in 4 to 6 weeks. In the meantime, we are determining the training requirements and identifying volunteers to be trained on all school campuses. We have also initiated a relaunch of our Crisis Go communication app, which allows staff members to better communicate during an emergency situation. As the year progresses, staff will increase their utilization of the app as they learn more about its features and receive additional training. The emergency communication app allows for two-way communication between staff during an event, attendance accounting of students, alert notifications for fire, earthquakes, lockdown scenarios, and medical assistance where needed. Recognizing the increased health needs of our students, we have significantly increased the health clerk time on each of our campuses. This will help schools manage the increased demand on our health offices. And finally, we are in the process of establishing a permanently staged emergency operations center here at the district office. This will allow for a more efficient response in providing direct support to our school campuses in the event of a district-wide emergency such as an earthquake or fire. Once completed, we plan to conduct a district-wide drill this spring to test the communication system in real time. I would like to conclude by thanking our board for your continued commitment to safety and wellness of our students and school community. While we are certainly proud of the efforts we have made in the area of safety, we are never satisfied. We will always continue to seek feedback from you as well as our school community on how we can continue to improve in this area. We look ahead to gathering this feedback for our LCAP stakeholder meetings later in the winter and look forward to hearing more from you as we set our initiatives moving forward. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I think that this is amazing, and this is such great work, and I'm just thrilled to see all of the progress we've made, and I think parents at home are going to feel really good about sending their kids to school. And another thing I wanted to bring up was a concern someone said was, well, this Narcan, what happens if you give it to somebody that isn't on an opioid overdose? And so I was able to confirm that if you do give Narcan to someone, if you think it's an opioid overdose but you're wrong, it has no effect on the person whatsoever. The Narcan only works if you are in an opioid overdose. And if you get it wrong and you administer it, like nothing will happen to you. So I think that that's something that everyone at home, can feel a little bit better about.
That is accurate. Our nurses have assured me of that. It's similar to the EpiPen, same thing.
Yes.
No harmful effect if it's not read correctly.
Yeah, and I think too, just with Halloween coming, we really, I've kind of like told my own kids who are older, I just, with the fake wrappings that some of the fentanyl's coming in, I just said, please be very, very aware where your kids are getting their candy from. You know, make sure it's store bought. Like I've been told my kids, just don't accept any candy at school right now, just because you don't know. You know, we trust friends, we trust all this stuff, but you just never know in this day and age. So, but yeah, thank you so much. This is like excellent work, and I'm just so proud.
Thank you for the comment, and I would be remiss without, well, I have the pleasure of reporting on this and telling all the great things that we're doing. It really is these amazing leaders here that have taken the lead on so many of these initiatives from our just get to brag about it, but I really want to commend our folks who have really been the backbone of this initiative, all these initiatives.
Thank you.
I have like a question and kind of a comment. I'm really interested in our Permanent Emergency Operations Center and what services or what will we be able to do and ensure that this is an evolving thing. So I will definitely be looking forward to board updates on how this is going to be utilized in the future. I don't know if you want to touch on it now.
I can certainly provide the board with a more comprehensive update, but the Reader's Digest version of it is that it provides a centralized location to manage an emergencies district-wide event. Many in our audience are very familiar with the fires that we experienced a couple of different times. And we haven't necessarily experienced the earthquake, but those are two potential issues that might come up. And when you have an event that impacts multiple school campuses simultaneously, there has to be an organization and a coordination of our response and how we support those schools. All of our schools are equipped with power fail phones. In the event that there's a power outage, they'll still have the ability to communicate with the Emergency Operations Center. It is a centralized location that can field those phone calls via radio, via telephone line, via power fail phone, so that we can route the correct materials, supplies, personnel to respond in the case of a district-wide event. And so it's important to have, typically that EOC has been around for several years. It's normally staged right here in this boardroom, but there is no guarantee that this boardroom will be accessible in the event of a major event. So our goal was to stage that EOC in a completely isolated location that we can permanently stage it, set it up, and be able to respond in an instant if there is some sort of district-wide event. That's not quite a Reader Digest version, but that's best I can do.
Mr. McElendon, one of the things I wanted to bring up, first of all, like everyone up here has said, great job on spearheading this and having the staff that is helping you along with the whole preparation of this. This is amazing. Now, question for you though, I remember that Esperanza has a particular cargo carrier that happens to have or hold all of the community emergency response team equipment. Is that correct?
Not necessarily specific to basically the city of Anaheim has set up 3 locations throughout Anaheim, one on the west end of Anaheim, one on the centralized end, and one on the furthest east end of the campus or of their city. That location on the east end is at Esperanza High School, and we have some emergency supplies that are on that campus really intended for that immediate community. And there are trained community members that have gone through the formal training to be certified that live in that proximity of the school. So in the event of a district-wide issue or even something specific to that particular part of Anaheim, those trained CERT folks know to go to that location at Esperanza to take those supplies and further disseminate them out to the local community in that area.
No, that's correct. And I know that one of the things in which in the case of emergency, they like to seek areas that are wide open, and usually schools are one of the prime areas that are looked for. And would it be possible, you think, that all of our, say our high schools, since they seem to be spread out the best geographically, could connect with maybe the CERT programs of Yorba Linda and Placentia or Fullerton, and maybe have a setup like that as well? and maybe offer staff or teachers that are wanting to get into a program like that the ability to become a certified CERT member.
Certainly, that opportunity certainly presents itself. I know all of our cities, we've gotten to know the city managers and those that are in charge of emergency response, and I think they would be very receptive to that very idea. So we can certainly pursue that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, I'm always interested in the constant review, or the regular review and monitoring things that have to do with Prado Dam. Because we through the years have certainly seen, all of us have seen the reports of the risk that could be involved there. And the evacuation time would be, we couldn't even move buses out there that fast. So it's just one of my things that I've always just kind of thrown back out, like, I hope we're always watching that. I know we're very diligent. It's the kind of thing we hope never will happen, but that's just one of the things I was ring the bell on. I did have a question about, you had talked about the added fencing and so forth. I periodically hear, and maybe we even had some comments here in the boardroom, some concerns about open gates that might be available when students are entering and leaving campus. Have we done anything that we feel we can assure our parents and so forth that there's adequate security, that during those points in time, part of it sometimes is just parents coming onto campuses at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, what have you. I didn't know if you had any comments to make at this, but that's at this time, but otherwise I'm just always interested in knowing the little Achilles heels.
Sure, absolutely, and I always have a comment, so I can certainly present that. I will, thank you for that. What I will say to you is schools are really built and intended to be places for the community to gather. I think our community across our district celebrates the opportunity for families to come together, and certainly that there is a gathering that happens every single day when kids are being dropped off and being picked up. It happens twice a day. So we want to celebrate that, right? But there's also a balance in making sure that our campuses are secured when the business of the school day starts. And so also realizing that our campuses are different configurations built at different times over the history of our district, and have different setups, different entry points, different configurations in how they're built. And so each one is uniquely, needs to be uniquely evaluated with regards to how kids come on and off of a campus. So what we have done is given our principals the authority and the ability to develop their own plans for when those gates are locked at the start of the instructional day, and when they're unlocked at the end of it, to help facilitate students moving off that campus. We have given our principals that latitude. Certainly there's always a focus on safety on a campus, and our principals have that at the forefront of what they're looking at and what they're focused on. But they have to do it in a thoughtful way where we celebrate our parents coming and dropping kids off, doing it in a way that maximizes safety and the amount of time that parents are actually adults are on campus themselves. But I will tell you in general, across all of our campuses, once that school day starts, the expectation is the campuses are secured. They are closed campuses, and everybody visiting that campus throughout the business of the day has to come through the front office to be screened through our SAM system. So that is a common expectation across our campus. But which gates are opened and what time they're opened is a site-to-site level decision that we trust our principals with, and that's a long-standing practice in our district.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, but is there anything from your angle that you noticed that you? Oh, good. I was always being over.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say thank you so much for speaking on the mental health and wellness work that we've done in the district. And I did want to just speak from a student's perspective and say implementing the counselors and wellness specialists has definitely made a difference, especially in my own school. I go to El Dorado High School in case you don't know. And we have a newer wellness specialist, Mr. Cesar Valdez, and just something that he does every week is send home a Wellness Wednesday email that goes up to all of our students. And I know that a number of people do read them, and we do publicize the information he shares on our school's Instagram. And so just speaking for a lot of students and families, I think we do really appreciate implementing people who are going to help us promote wellness in that area. And then just, I did have a quick question about the Crisis Go app. Is that something that's currently in active use, or did you say that it's something that will be implemented soon?
It was actually just relaunched at the start of this year, so it's one of those things that actually our principals received communication and some training modules to look at 2 weeks ago, and the staff communication for the downloading of the app, instructions on how to utilize it, the practice of the use of the app. That communication actually goes out tomorrow to all staff. So it's in the early stages of that moving forward with full implementation, but that is happening now as we currently speak.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your input. She touched on something I should have asked, and that is some of our schools are developing wellness centers or kind of a space the students can go to. Is this something that we are, by that I'm talking about a medical center, I'm talking about a part of the campus where I know El Camino does it, I believe in Yorba Linda High has an area that kind of is a dual purpose area right there in conjunction with the library.
I think it's one of those things, it's not a district mandated, but it is district supported. If there's a school site, I think our counselors historically across our district always look for those opportunities to, work directly with students, whether it's individual one-on-one or whether it's in small group settings. And so they may have identified locations on their campus that give kids a place to go if they're feeling like they need some additional support or that sort of thing. So I think it's more of an organic development that happens on our campuses with intentionality of trying to create that space for students who are feeling like they just need a place to go to get that support they've identified on some of our campuses. But it's a district supported initiative, not necessarily something that we're requiring all campuses to do.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. This must have been a couple of meetings ago where we had the police chief from Placentia and the officer from the OC Sheriff's. They talked about school mapping. Did we give the updated school maps to those agencies?
We did. Laminated maps, we give them electronic versions. We're in the process of, we've asked all of our site principals and have since received all of them back to make sure that they take one good look at the map, make sure that it's current. We're in the process of expanding those maps into, I don't know the exact measurements, but they're larger maps that are laminated that police would have 2 sets of every map for every school in our district. So that way, if they're responding in force to a campus for an emergency event, they have the complete layout of the map. They're very detailed. So it does show all the gas lines, all the things that police would want to look for when they're responding to a school site, all the entry points configured by the streets around it, that sort of thing. So yes, we have provided those in addition to keys to our school campuses, so they have access to buildings for routine and for emergency response. Sometimes we get alarms that go off. We want to make sure our police have access to the campus to be able to investigate any potential security issue. So they do have keys available at their disposal.
That includes Knox box.
Absolutely. So fire has a Knox box, and then also we're in the process of installing a separate Knox box for police department as well. Fire, for some reason, doesn't share that with PD, so we elected to add police Knox boxes that they have access to, so that either first responder would have ability to access a campus.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. McElendon. As you look through it, starts at 2013, and everything that we've done, it just builds and builds and builds. And the safety, of course, is our #1 our number one thing that we have to focus on. And then after that, we can do everything that we want to. So I really appreciate it and all of the detail. And I hope everybody else enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We are going to take a 5-minute break since we have a lot of policies to go through and then our consent calendar. So we'll take a 5-minute and I'll come back at, well, it says 9:02 now, so 9:10. We'll go a little bit more than we usually do, but please be back by 9:10.
But I thought so. I know. Well, thank you so much. How do you like that? Right. Well,
Live, right? And it's on? Yeah. Hot mic. I don't know how to stop it. It's on. That's always Hi, Sherry. Sorry. I got your email about the election integrity stuff. Yeah, perfect. I signed up to do it. I just haven't had time to get a meeting yet. But I told him I could probably do it like election day.
I'm going to give you all a 15-second warning if you wouldn't mind getting ready to restart, please. Thank you everyone for the break. Now that takes us to our general functions, and we have 9 that we'll be going through today. So let's start with number 1. I need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 22-11, conflict of interest code and revise exhibit A, list of designated positions, or bylaw 9250.1, conflict of interest code.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Dr. Matthew.
Good evening, everybody. This is our Political Reform Act that requires every agency to review its conflict of interest code. in order to notify the code reviewing body if the current code is accurate or if it needs to be amended. So our conflict of interest code was last reviewed in November of 2021. The revised code presented to you has been updated to reflect our current and recent position changes. And thank you for consideration of this item.
Okay, open it up to comments. Anybody have any? Page, sorry. No comments, no comments. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And next.
Thank you. The next item before you is Board Bylaw 9323, Agenda and Meeting Materials. This is the third time our board has seen this policy. So these are policies that we regularly review to make sure we're compliant with the state and everything else. So revision here reflects current law, recommended language from Gamut, as well as comments made at both the August 9th and September 13th by you, the board. So if the second reading is approved, we will adopt Board Bylaw 9323 and post it to our website.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt revised board bylaw 9323 entitled Agenda Meeting Materials, and it is our second reading.
Is it possible to make public comment?
No, it is not.
Oh, wait a second.
You have a question?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I got confused. So
We're on
on
number 2. right?
on number 2. Yeah, so on 9323, page 7. I would like to, on the third paragraph, remove the words "or during." So it says that agenda shall provide members of the public the opportunity to address the board on the agenda item before, and then I just would like to get rid of that "or during" the board consideration.
Well, so let me ask you this. So
Well, I should be able to comment now because it's
somebody
yours.
just asked in the audience if they could comment on that, and I think that if this is what our bylaws are saying, then I do think that as things come up, because sometimes the public doesn't know as much, so if you want to go, other districts do this where if something comes up, that they can comment on the item if they haven't been able to previously comment before. I am not in, I'm in favor of keeping it, because I think that could be a good thing.
Our current policy allows people to turn in a card before the public comment section, and they may choose at that time whether to comment during the public comment section or before the item. And so those are the two, that's how it exists right now. So even now today, a request now would not be considered, but the person could have made that choice at the beginning at that point. And I believe that hasn't happened since I've been here, but I believe it's happened here before.
Right, but this says, so on this one, it says the agenda shall provide members of the public the opportunity to address the board on any agenda item before or during the board's consideration of the item. And so I think that could be a good idea, I'd like to keep it.
And you didn't use all 30
Excuse me,
minutes
this
of
is our
public
meeting.
comment.
We, I would like to strike out "or during," because once we start the consideration of the item, the public comment should have already been spoken. So even if it's before the actual item or during our public comment time, it really needs to be before we start considering that item.
Well, I kind of disagree, only because the public doesn't know consent items that we're going to be pulling, and they should probably have the right to speak on those consent items as well. So during should stay in there.
But they do have the opportunity to talk and at those items at the beginning. So they can put that on there, that they want to talk about that specific item, whether we pull it up from consent.
So when we have consent items, and we've been able to research it, sometimes the public doesn't get the same opportunity, especially if we pull it and we come up with information that they might not have. So giving them the ability to comment on those, I think, would be pretty critical.
Mrs. Freeman.
In the time times that I've seen it done occasion where once we've had public comment, whether the person came forward either at the podium under public comment, where they can discuss anything within our purview, including items on the agenda, nor have I seen anyone come up if they spoke right before, as you said, we considered the item, but to be already engaged in the process of our discussion as a board, this is our part of the business meeting now, for more public comment to come forward. No, I've never seen that done.
I've seen it happen in a workshop where you have an item where some boards should have a back and forth during the workshop with the public. I've seen that occur then, but I agree the purpose of public comments is to give the board information for them to consider when they engage in conversation and then vote upon the issue. And we tried to make clear recently that people may comment on consent items at the public comment section of the meeting. I think people have a very educated parent body. I think people know that and do comment on our consent items often. I'm sorry.
He wasn't trying to interrupt you.
No,
I think we've done a really good job since I've been on the board. Now you can get all the materials that we get on Friday are posted at the same time. So the public has plenty of time, as much time as we have, to go through this and read. They get the exact same memos. They have access to all the same information. And so I think to keep the meetings efficient and we have a lot of public comment, that everyone can make their public comment at the beginning. And we're gonna discuss public comment in a minute. And, you know, I think there's some ways to make that more user-friendly. But I do think that it's just kind of distracting. I just think that the or during should just be removed. And it's just that, so everybody knows, there's no question that when they come to the meeting, if there's something on the consent calendar or something in general functions or finances or whatever, that they can make their comment at that time. That's how I feel.
My only concern with that is these are sometimes 5-hour meetings, and so someone misses they really want to comment, and then they miss their time to comment, but they show up, halfway through. I've seen other districts, do it in this manner, and I've always thought, it can be a good thing, and.
Yes, Ms. Green. Anyone has the opportunity to send in an email, make a call, in any other way of communication.
You don't respond.
All right, so any more discussion on that? So why don't we,
Did we come to a consensus?
that's what we need to do. So we pretty much need to vote on this one. So do we want to, let's see, why don't we
have a motion in a second. We have a
Motion
motion on
to-
the floor.
okay, motion, but we haven't gone through the rest of it. So we're doing,
That's
we're,
true. So we're, okay.
are there any other comments on any of it? Just that one? Okay, so, with the motion and the second we have now, we will, take a vote to pass it with the 2 words or during stricken. So that was without.
President Bell, real quick, I did notice one other thing.
Okay.
This was, let's see, this is actually on the second page, second paragraph down. After the superintendent at his discretion, you might want to has his or her discretion. You see why that?
Oh, yes, I do see that. Yes.
Okay.
Good catch.
Great catch.
Just in case.
Thank you.
Could be there. How's that? Their discretion.
Sure.
Either one.
Includes
Okay, great. Okay, so that one we all agree on. So what we'll do is we'll take a vote to scratch the or during. If that doesn't pass, then we can re-vote on it without, or leaving it in.
State that one more time.
We have a first and a second, and we have it on the table that we are striking or during.
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favor of striking or during and passing? Aye. And those opposed?
No.
Okay, so this passes 3-2. Okay, so that takes us next to number 3, independent study.
You want a motion?
A motion and a second, please.
Okay, I will make a motion that we adopt revised board policy 6141.5 entitled independent study as a second reading.
A second.
All right, Dr. Adamson.
Well, thank you. Good evening, President Beck, trustees, Superintendent Matthews, and Executive Cabinet. As we informed you at last month's board meeting, on June 30th, 2022, Governor Newsom approved Assembly Bill 181 that, among other things, amended provisions of the Education Code related to independent study. To present a second reading regarding our proposed changes to the Independent Study Board Policy 61415, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Director of High School, Gina Aguilar.
Good evening, President Buck, trustees, Dr. Matthews, and Executive Cabinet. The TK through 12th grade education omnibus budget trailer bill, AB 181, was released on June 20th, 2022 as a follow-up to AB 130 released in July of 2021. Both bills provide updates to the independent study policy. The latest updates to the independent study policy include changes in language related to required signatures for students to participate in independent study programs. Adjustments were also made to requirements for live interaction, synchronous instruction, and tiered re-engagement. Finally, changes to the bill impact the consideration for participation in independent study for students with special needs. If an eligible student requests independent study, an IEP team must convene and make an individualized determination regarding whether the eligible student can receive a free, appropriate public education, FAPE, through independent study. This new language in the board policy was vetted through both our district auditing firm and legal services at the Orange County Department of Education. It is our pleasure to bring forward these changes in the board policy to you for a second reading, and we thank you in advance for your consideration of these policy changes.
Anyone have questions, comments? I had one question. So we're looking at no fewer than 3 days, no more than 14 as we're looking at the short term. Does that cover some cases where people are traveling and they do independent study, they collect the work ahead of time, they take it with them, and then they are able to turn that in and get credit for it?
It does. That would be considered short-term independent study.
Thank you. All right, that was my only question. Okay, so with that, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, I'll need a motion and a second for public comment. Thank you, Mrs. Aguilar.
I'll make a motion to revise board policy 9322.2, public comment, first reading.
Second.
If I may say, this is several new policies here. I think one of our goals over the next quite a few meetings is to bring them policies to us that have not been updated in a while and to share those with the board. And so I think that this one's probably a more challenging one, but many will be very easy changes that just update the language. So public comment will probably be a carryover from our last conversation we just had, but this is our 9322.2 public comment policy. This reflects current law and recommended language from Gamut, although this is not a Gamut required policy. This is something we do on our own. And this also includes suggestions made by board members at previous meetings. The proposed language clarifies several parameters for addressing the board, including prioritizing items that are prioritizing comments that are for items on the agenda. It clarifies the minutes per speaker. It clarifies campaign language, and it includes our civility policy. And there's just general cleanup language in there as well. If the first reading is approved this evening, we will bring the bylaw back with your suggestions for a second reading and perhaps approval in November.
So my first thought was, I think if we have 31 to 60 speakers, I think we should just go 31 plus, has a minute each, because I kind of feel it's unfair to give somebody 30 seconds. Can't say much in 30 seconds.
I would agree with you there.
I mean, I talk fast and I couldn't say it
I
very
agree, that was
quickly.
one of my notes as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna bump that up to 31 plus speakers get 1 minute.
I will just cite an example where we had 100 plus speakers. So keep it in mind.
That's exceptional, I believe.
Hopefully we won't get to that.
And you'll notice also that we no longer would, to accompany that, we will no longer say a maximum of 30 minutes because when we have several speakers, we don't do that, right? We go over, so this now will be consistent with what we do.
So on number 4, then it will start with each speaker, so that the first part of a maximum of 30 minutes shall be set aside for public comment. The maximum is struck out, but I think we should get rid of the 30 minutes set aside for public comment at each board meeting, during which time I think we should just start, each speaker shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board regarding.
Right, I think that can work if we keep that language on the speaker link, what would be allowed.
Yeah, for the following.
Okay.
Could you repeat that? Are you saying that you think it will work by still keeping the 30
I think what,
or dispensing?
dispensing, just because it's set now on what we're supposed to do.
Just by multiplication, we're gonna get to 30.
Multiplication, not even algebra. Just an algebra.
And there's the line in there also that we can email the board prior. And we haven't had that language in there before, so I'm glad to see that in there.
Also on number 2, since we are having indefinite public speakers, that new section that's added, that's underlined, while comments on non-agenda items or allowed comments related to the agenda item will have priority if time does not permit all comments to be made. I don't think that's relevant anymore.
Just to push back a little, I mean, I get that. But if there were 100 comments on agendized items and 50 comments on non-agendized items, and I know that would happen very, I hope I'm not here when that happens, but was that too honest?
I hope that never happens.
May have been too honest, I apologize, but I mean, it would give the board the opportunity to get to the business of the meeting. If they would have that choice. I know it's always hard for the person presiding over the meeting to say no to those comments, but the purpose is to help you, give you information about the items you're deciding on that night. That's the purpose. So I respect what you're saying, certainly, and I'll honor the board's will on that.
So just to kind of piggyback on that, even if we have 100 comments and they all go for 1 minute, would we really take the 50 and cut off the next 50, or would we just see all 100 like Mrs. Freeman says?
It would be more related to what we're talking about. So if it was actually an item and we wanted to make sure and hear everybody specific to an item that's on the agenda, we would hear them. But if it's not on the agenda, then we could table that and have them come back.
And who would decide what gets tabled and not?
It'd be on the card. If they said it's on an agenda
So you would
item,
just sit here and just start picking and choosing?
I mean, if it says it's an agenda item, then no matter what, it gets in.
Is that a constitution violation because this is a public meeting and people have the right to be heard?
Yeah, I can check that out, but I mean, I mean, that's a legitimate question. I believe so, because again, it's a maximum, I mean, we don't have to hear, the idea is to give the public an opportunity to contribute. You've already gone beyond what most districts are doing by saying we'll go about 30 minutes. And your point of it, again, is to make sure you have the information you need before you decide on agendized items.
You don't need the union reps talking about
Excuse
stuff
me,
that's
this is
not
our
on the
meeting. We
agenda.
can't have you comment. Thank you.
It's true though. It's true though. It's true. It should be both sides.
Okay, so maybe
Well,
this is a
what-
first reading, correct? So we could maybe get a little clarification on that,
Sure.
make sure it's not
Yep.
violating any.
Good question.
Other comments? Yes.
And my comment is really that the way this is laid out, I think gives a clearer picture to our attendees of what they can anticipate. Because doing quick math, based on just the number of cards received, this I think just is a better roadmap that I think will facilitate and streamline, even if it does build in more time. I think it does really set, as I said, a roadmap of how we're going to conduct that portion of our meeting.
Thank you. And I have to say, to give our speakers credit, it's been very civil, I think, overall. Our comments have been, like I said, I'm very grateful for the comments. I think people have abided by the rules, and people have different opinions. That's okay. I have that's what that's for. But I'm appreciative of our speakers.
Should have been here last year.
Thank you, Sean. No, I had watched a few.
I have a question question regarding number 8. So there was recently some laws changed regarding conduct in board meetings and removing people that are for willful disturbance. There's legal language now that I'd like you to just compare it and make sure that we're following those rules. Because there's nothing underlined here, and since that's changed, just to double check it.
Got it, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
Thank you for your input. I'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
thank you. Okay, so we'll take a vote on where we are. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. And opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And if you want to bring 5 through 8 are all very similar in my mind. If you want to bring those 4 together, we can talk about those all together for a first reading and just, because I think it's easy to do that.
So we'll make a motion in a second on the first one, then you can talk to all of them, and then we'll go through. Okay, perfect. Motion second, please. Well,
Yeah, you could move 5 through 8.
I could do that.
You can do that.
Okay, so we'll move 5 through 8. I need a motion and a second.
We'll make a motion to move 5 through 8.
I'll second.
Okay, so these items, just to be clear, are all items all policies we currently have. That's the roles of the president of the board, the vice president of the board, the clerk of the board, and I believe the secretary of the board is the last one. And so what we did with these, and we've actually had some public comments, particularly on the president one, that were actually quite justified. Our former policy was very simple and did not contain a lot of things that are very customary for what the president of the board does. So I think these policies more clearly outline what the role of the president is, what the role of the vice president is, what the role of the secretary of the board, which is me, and the clerk of the board. And so again, like board member Freeman was saying earlier, I think they nicely lay out what the expectations are. But I look forward to your comments about any or all of them, and we can bring those back to you for a second meeting.
I like the president of the board a lot better. Having one tiny little paragraph and having now lots of different bullet points talked about is very specific, so I appreciate that.
I have on page 26, number 1, it says signing all instruments. I think it should be documents.
Yeah, that's like a real English word. Documents. The instruments sounds like a legal word. So yeah.
Okay.
And then also, one of our protocols is that the president of the board responds to all emails sent to all the board members. So I think we should add that on the second page as well. Just
We could add that as number 5.
Good catch.
Okay. Thank you.
Any others on that one?
Yes.
On the president?
this policy, yes. I had brought this up when I met with our superintendent, and I'm just gonna revisit it really quickly. On page 25, item 5, it talks to keeping in compliance with the applicable requirements of the Brown Act, and I had questioned whether or not it should say Ed Code. I don't know which is the larger umbrella.
The larger umbrella is Ed Code. I mean, Brown Act is codified in the California Ed Code, but you wouldn't be harmed with either one.
Should we put and or?
I had said maybe and, but because I think we, of course, do reference the Brown Act quite a bit. So I think people are becoming more familiar with that for the most part, those who, tune in or are in attendance. But the Ed Code is overarching.
Sure, let's do an and.
Okay. Any others on the president? Do you want to vote on this one and then move on? Or we voted on all of them, so let's move on unless there are no more comments. Go to.
I had a real quick question on number 8 of the
Okay.
president of the board, rule on issues of parliamentary procedure. My thought on that, and I was going to bring this up as a possible future agenda item, is that we look at possibly having an actual position for parliamentarian. Because I know that there are so many of these bylaws, board policies, ed code policies that I think we need somebody that's a little more versed in this area. I don't know if it would be a staff position. I'm just throwing it out there as something we need to consider, just so we don't get ourselves in a situation that we have in the past.
Okay, let me, I've not seen that before, but let me look at that and see. I think typically we consult me if there are major parliamentary issues, which you guys have had questions about that before. I mean,
Yeah, we'll pause.
we can get,
Call the
you know,
attorney.
we can get legal involved and all that, and I'm your person for leading with that, you know, kind of communicating with you and with legal, but let me get you a more formal answer to that, Sean, so I can get that to you. Okay?
We can always put that on the secretary of the board's to-do list.
We could. Yeah, other duties is assigned. It's okay. Yeah, thank you. Kindergarten scares me. That's what the.
Okay, so any more on that one? Okay, let's move on to vice president. It's short and sweet. Any comments, changes?
And the only reason we scratched out that one line is we don't have board policy 9324.2. So to refer to, so we thought it'd be a good thing to take that line out. I have a partner who did catch that. I'm not gonna mention Annette Newton's name, but she's very good. Mhm. Mhm. That's why I did not mention her name.
I think for parliamentarian, they have to be able to rule on it, so it has to be one of us, but we can have somebody that can advise us.
I thought an extra stipend, she might go for that.
She just might.
This is her worst meeting ever already.
Okay, so nothing else on vice president? Moving on to secretary. Any notes, changes, comments? This went from longer to shorter, so that's been much more clear.
The only thing I noticed was, number 2 had been, part of it had been stricken to attend all board meetings, and I just think we should add that at the end of the list.
The secretary should
The
be,
secretary.
the superintendent should be at all board meetings?
I think so. Well,
That
but
should be the
it was
expectation.
listed, and I'm just thinking it didn't carry over. So it is the expectation.
Well,
I don't think we have to.
well, and we would always have, we have 4 assistant superintendents, so I don't see us in jeopardy there.
I think I agree. Because remember when Dr. Elfester was ill? You said, I mean, we have a deep bench here.
We have a deep bench, high qualified bench, exactly.
I'm okay with leaving it out. I don't think it changes it much.
Okay, so we'll leave it as is, and I will still be at the next meeting. Okay.
Good to know.
All of them. Okay, anything else on secretary? All right, moving to clerk. Any questions, comments, changes? That one again, from a small paragraph to nice bullet points.
Okay, so we can
Okay.
approve those. all
So
those.
with that, we are going to vote number 4 through 8 all in a block. 5 through 8, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. On 5 through 8. Okay, now moving on to number 9.
Thank you. The final policy on the agenda tonight for your consideration is Board Bylaw 9100, which is annual organizational meeting. You notice that we are changing the number of the board item because it fits better with the current gamut structure there. This is routine in nature. It is just looking at all the updates and policies and bylaws that have happened, reflecting current law and recommended language from gamut. And just what happens here is it takes the expectations for after every December, we do have a new organizational meeting. And so it just makes sure those are very clear as we go forward. And you can see once again, that the intent is to simplify it. Just so members of the public know, we were trying a new way of showing this where we were highlighting the new language, but when we printed the booklet, the highlighting did not come through. So maybe this is not working for us. I think you can all tell what that is, where the bolded part, but it was a super cool idea, but it was not, it's not perfected yet. So we may try it again and see how we do with that.
Anybody have any comments, changes? What do you think? Oh, she says we need a motion in a second. No joke.
I'll make a motion to revise board bylaw 9321.1 annual organization meeting and change the bylaw number to 9100 first reading.
Second.
Awesome.
Mrs. Freeman got it. Okay, any questions, comments, additions, changes?
Yes. Okay. On page 36, bullet point number 4. It says that we're gonna approve this, the meeting schedule, but then it also talks about the board governance calendar, stating the time when the board will address important governance matters. So currently, we do not have a governance calendar. In all my training, it says we should have one, but I think, this is something that if we're going to put this in, then we need to have a governance calendar. If we do not want to have a governance calendar, then we strike it.
So if I could interject, our calendar actually has the governance pieces embedded in them. So when we give our list of dates, we'll, like, for the example, in December, it'll say organizational meeting. In June, it'll say superintendent's annual review. Those are actually already embedded in. LCAP review, draft study, public hearings, LCAP. Those are the absolute ones that we have to have on there. That's why they're embedded together.
Yeah, I think, I'm just a new graduate, so, let's just let this go. But the governance calendar is supposed to be detailed. It's supposed to help us plan. And, like, when are we doing our audits? When are we doing our first interim? When are we approving the budget? All those things. When are we looking at test scores? And that's kind of what I would like to see, is like a full detailed governance calendar so that the public knows, hey, every October they discuss test results. Or, I really love budgets. No one says that, Dave.
I say it, Dave.
Dave says it.
If I may, I think you are both correct. I think our current schedule does have the basics, but I think we also could do more. And so I think what you're asking is to give a more extensive calendar as we propose this year's list of dates this year. That doesn't hurt us at all. In fact, it only makes transparency better. So no problem.
I like the addition to that you suggested. Anyone else? Any other comments?
I think there's one more.
I was waiting.
A second, I have to go to my second page.
You know what it is?
Sure.
Bring it.
You called me about this earlier, but the third paragraph that struck out, we wanted to include in the policy.
Oh, that's
page
exactly
35.
right. See, it's on this page.
See, I do listen to you.
So, page 35, they struck out the part that has the, I guess, the authority of the power, of how it goes down. And, I don't, obviously this next meeting after the election, it's not gonna be a problem because, we're not all up. But this was an issue when Mr. Youngblood, Mrs. Blades, and I were elected, because there was no president, vice president, or clerk at the time. And Mrs. Freeman conducted the meeting because she was the, she had the most seniority, and that's what this talks about. So that's why she conducted the meeting. And so I just think it's really, this may never come back up again, who knows, but I just think it's really important to include that, so there's no questions.
Who steps in?
And who steps in.
Yep.
Okay. Works for me.
That's fine. Again, it's transparent, it gives guidance when you are in those
Right.
exceptional moments.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm gonna call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you for considering all those, and we'll bring it back to you next time.
Okay, so now we are at consent calendar, and these are actions that are, it's a block vote, and they're consistent with the improved practices of our district and deemed routine in nature. Trustees receive board agenda backup information in advance of scheduled meetings, and we're prepared to vote with knowledge of the block vote items. And what I did see in all of our notes before, but it's not ever been listed here, is that directly states that the superintendent recommends approval of consent calendar, because you've already gone through this. So it doesn't say that, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that you're aware of these and you approve them. Okay. Anybody, so we should, unless we have any to pull, what do you have to pull?
4 and 18.
And I like to pull 22 and 24.
4, 18, 22, and what did you say? 24? Anyone else? 4, 18, 22, 24. Okay, so for the rest of them, I'll take a motion in a second.
I'll move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And we'll go back to number 4.
All right, so on number 4, it's the VBO tickets.
Motion in a second.
Oh, sorry, got ahead of myself. I'd like to make a motion to approve number 4, VBO ticketing systems.
I'll second.
All right, go ahead. Okay, so we have this VBO ticketing system, and I know it costs us $30,000 to have this. And one of the things that I was talking about was we're charging our own users an extra $1 a ticket, and then our visitors or outside vendors or outside users $2 for the tickets. And so I don't want to be crass by saying I'm not really upset about the $2 from the outside users, but I know our own families, like we have people go to football games and basketball games, and somebody's writing 10 tickets, so it's an additional $10 for our people to use. And so I was just hoping that maybe we could take away the fees for our district, and so we just pay the flat fee, like if you were to go up cash, pay $5. I was hoping to do that, and then I don't know what we want to do about the $2 for the outside user groups, if that's a way that we can somehow make money, but I just think that in these times, every dollar's counting, and so I'd like to see us have a break with our people, and I'm sure Mr. Giordano is extremely happy with me right now.
He's thinking, where's the other $30,000 gonna come from?
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, I do think we should be thinking about this because, I will give an example. A couple weeks ago, one of my kids and one of their friends went to one of my other son's football games. And so because they don't go to that school, I handed them $10, okay, go on in. And they came back, no, we can't, you have to do this app and all this stuff. So I went on there, and so instead of $10, it's $12. And then when I was people in the stands, and we complained about the same thing, I did buy 10 tickets and I was charged an extra $10. So I paid, instead of 100, I paid 110. And so I don't know if that's something feasible that we could do for our, for our community.
So, Mr. Giordano, we talked about this. I mean, I think the purpose of that is just what you said, to be revenue neutral, so that we pay the $30,000 that we makes much of that back. But board discretion on this. If the board would like to not charge the $1 for inside events, what it means is the district may be paying for that service and not getting all the money back. That's a service we could provide. Is that right, Mr. Giordano?
That's correct. The external groups, so the external groups really are charged the $2 fee, and then we have the internal groups is the $1 fee. Most of the fees that do come in are from the external groups. There's very little that the internal groups actually, if any, have incurred. They typically don't use the ticketing system, and so most of it is through external groups.
Are they able to use cash to?
No, you can't use cash. I've always had to use.
I have to use it to go watch my kids play in the band.
We need to go back to cash.
I think it depends on the group that's booking and how they're making those arrangements. But through the ticketing system itself, I believe you have to use a credit card or debit card, that type of payment method.
Okay, I just want to be clear. This system is only being used at the Performing Arts Center, like stuff that's happening.
No, no.
I
go watch the band.
Please, this is our meeting. We need to be able to hear each other.
So I'm thinking other schools have implemented their own ticketing system. Is that true?
Yeah, this is just used at our Performing Arts Center. We talked about expanding it at some point, but we're just testing it. We used it last year. This is our second year using it. And so the thought would be we wanted to roll this out to the auditorium, we could. But at this point, it's just the pack.
So the football games, the basketball games, all the stuff that we can't pay cash for, what system are they using? Because I'm getting paid, I paid $1 extra a ticket. And so what are this, if this isn't used district-wide, are schools using their own systems for ticketing?
Yeah, it's a good question. We can follow up and get that information for you, but I don't have that readily available. Good question.
So do we, sorry, do you have something?
No, I was just gonna ask, so perhaps is there a critical time on renewing this as to getting it done this evening?
I think we could bring this back at the next meeting. It would more than likely be a ratification because we're using the system, but we could do that if
Because it would be helpful to have just a little bit more information on the fiscal impact. I mean, you said overall it's really predominantly the outside groups, but nonetheless, maybe a little bit more information would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Do we need a motion to vote or to table it?
How would you like us to?
Yeah, I think
Since
that,
we're already using it.
yeah. I think there's two ways to do it. One is to vote it down and bring it back for next time. And the other is for everybody the motion to withdraw the motion and we can do it.
I'll make a motion to withdraw my motion.
Second.
Okay, so it's withdrawn.
Just withdraw. The second and the maker and the second.
Okay, so that next takes us to 18.
Okay, so for 18, I did ask this.
Need a motion in a second.
Thank you. I'm really trying to hurry this along, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the professional development service agreement with EduLastics for grades 6 to 12.
I'll second.
So my question on this was, this is quite a lot less expensive than iReady, and it says that it's done with assessments, and the big picture of it talks about EduLastic is a platform for formative assessments for students, teachers, and school districts, and allows teachers to create assessments from a variety of high-quality items, etc. So my question is, if we're using iReady for $680,000, whatever it is, and it's kind of, what is this is only $2,300, and so what is our difference here? And is this, like, why are we putting in supplemental ones? Are we just using iReady? Is there like different assessment? I guess my question is like, since iReady is so unpopular, is this something that we could go to, or can you just explain the difference to me?
Of course, absolutely. It's a great question. So you'll recall last month we brought EduLastics through for the actual licensing agreements for the program itself. So I forget the exact amount that it was, but it's significantly more. This is purely just for the training that's required for our teachers. And that's why it's such a small amount.
Okay, and so so if we're using both, why are we using two assessments? If iReady is like being implemented, and then, or is this because this is 6 through 12 and this is more the assessment for high school and iReady is used more for lower grades?
That's very close.
Oh my gosh, I answered my own question.
I think the biggest distinction is all of our high school teachers utilize this for sure. They don't, iReady is only up through 8th grade, but it's also available for our middle school teachers, and it's not just for math and reading. They can use it for any other subjects that they teach. And it really allows, it provides a bank of, an item bank of pre-built assessments, but also teachers can go in and create their own assessments as well. And it's a platform that allows the students to actually take the assessment online, it grades it for them, and so there's definitely a distinct difference between the two programs.
And just for future, does EduLastic have a elementary
assessment type thing, or is it only 6 to 12?
No, it's K-12.
Okay.
I think the only, the biggest difference with it is it's not really, considered a reading program and a math program. It actually, provides the lessons that go along that it already has.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Number 22.
I'll make a motion to approve the school-sponsored field trips as listed in accordance with board policy number 6153, school-sponsored trips.
Second.
And your comment?
Okay, so I had a really hard time getting through this section during the study for a lot of reasons. Some of these field trips are very costly, and it just brought and they got the costs. There's some field trips that are over $3,000 per student, and some over $2,000 per student that we're approving tonight. And so I kind of just want us to go back and review these policies so that we are making sure that all schools are able to go on field trips. Since the beginning of the school year, Yorba Linda High School has 6 extended field trips with 5 days of school missing. Esperanza, 6 extended field trips with 8 days of school missing. El Dorado, 4 with 5 days of school missing. And interesting enough, Placentia has put in 0 extended field trips. And that's just this year. So I think we have like an equity issue. I think as a parent, if I would have gotten that bill, I probably would have hit the roof. And if we're offering, educational opportunities, we want to make sure that everybody can go. So I want to make sure, kind of to review basically, who's covering these costs, because there's no cost listed in these books. It just says no cost to the district. Is there limits to these? What happens to the kids who can't afford? Are there limits on big trips, like annual versus every 4 years? And also, the balancing act between educational purpose and time missing school. I just think that this was just a great reminder that we need to go back and look at these things and address these issues to be, more equitable for our students and make sure that everyone's getting opportunities. And, one extended field trip, basically, there was nothing all day except for 1 game. And I want to make sure that if we're going to take our kids out of school, that it's an educational experience. It's not a vacation experience. We're in the education business. So I'm going to approve these tonight, but this is something that I really think that we need to look at, and as a board, kind of work on some policies and some guidance for our site principals, so that when they come up, that they can say, look, they only do this trip every 4 years. We've done these things, and this is what we've done, so that every student, can come and attend.
And if I could add, we're required to provide a free education, and these things are outside of education, but it still does matter when you're looking at the ability for some students to go and some not, especially when you're looking at one high school versus other high schools, and trying to balance that. It really is a challenge, and it doesn't impact our district bottom line in this way, but it does impact families' bottom line, and it also impacts other families and students that aren't unable to attend. So I appreciate what you're bringing up.
I appreciate it also, and so I think when we did our, the LCAP, we were talking about having some type of fundraising or having some type of deal that raises money for people who can't afford it. Remember we talked about that? Because as I'm looking at this as a former athlete, like to go to some of these things, dance nationals, I mean, this covers everything. This is our arts,
This is basketball, this is water polo, this is, our, you know, the Castle Middle School Conference. This is cross country, this is, cheer, this is, a theater tour, so I'm assuming this is like from our, you know, the, Yorba Linda High School, their theater group. I think this covers everything, but not only do we educate, but these are also the things that help with growth. And this is things that these kids have been working for. And these are like the goals. And a lot of these kids, these are the reasons that they get the good grades and that they work hard in school is because they are working hard, you know, for their team or for another goal. And so I think if we're going to start talking about these things, we need to, as a district, we need to start looking at ways that we can fundraise, or we can, you know, talk about having facilitate this so people can go to it, because I mean these are great experiences, and I would like to make it accessible too, but I also don't want to limit these kids who are working so hard, like world-class elite dance nationals. You know, this is California State Cross Country Championships. I would hate to take something away from these kids who have been working their tails off, literally, you know, to make this. So that's just my 2 cents. But
Real quick, and I'm glad Trustee Anderson brought this up, but is there a specific way in which schools will request these types of field trips? And if so, I mean, I don't really see Valencia High School in here. Is there, why is that? I mean,
It's likely has to do with funding.
Is just funding?
A lot of the time, yes. I can't say that for sure, but these trips are fundraised by the students. So they're either selling items or raising money from friends and family. If they don't have accessibility to do that, or to have friends and family that can purchase things like that, then they don't go.
So if the district were to have a district fundraising event, would some of that money or a portion of that
would have to
money
all be like, the detail would have to all be worked out.
We have a foundation also.
Yeah, we do have the Reach Foundation who could, and part of their goals are arts education and athletics, so they would fit right along with there.
so what you're saying is we all need to be running when it's 5K.
Yes, everybody needs to get out there and run in the 5K.
Sean?
Great.
Let's see how
Yeah, Ms. Green.
And some of these sports events though are invitationals. They qualify at a certain point to be eligible to participate. And so this is one set of field trips. We'd have to review to see if other teams, say from Valencia, also are sending someone. It may vary. There may be reasons that a school chooses not to participate other than finances. But I think it's a very broad topic with obviously interest to learn more about it, and of course be certain that we're not discouraging participation, and we're not limiting those experiences that really do make the overall high school, or maybe it's in a different grade level, those experiences memorable and perhaps life-changing because they participated. But the cost issue is always a big one. I know there have been times in the past, I think groups would even take the Washington DC trip and so forth, but that's kind of gone away. But it's probably a good time to start looking at it again.
And I do agree that it should be some sort of related to education and what we're doing, not just a random trip. It makes sense.
I'm just glad we all agree that we should be working forward to financial to help so everybody
I have been talking for the last year plus about, our ESSER funds and how we should use those to really help our students to have these wonderful experiences, but no ESSER dollars are being spent on these subjects.
I had a feeling you would bring that up, absolutely. And so just, what I first want to say is that I think your conversations up here are mirroring the same conversations we're having here at the cabinet level. In fact, we have a presentation that we're presenting to our principals this coming Thursday to really just, speak to just the, the submission of, memos in general, but, field trips will, obviously, feature in that. I think we're looking at it through the lens of equity and, you know, making sure equal opportunities are available to all of our students. When it comes to funding, I think you're absolutely, we know that we can't, for students who can't afford, you know, to pay the fees that are associated with it, we, you know, need to be able to provide and make a way for that to happen so we can, you know, cover some of those costs if necessary. We also know that any time, you know, we put forward fees for a field trip, as an example, that they are voluntary, right? They are considered donations. You know, when I think of Valencia right now, it makes me think of just a conversation that, you know, we were having with the principal, you know, just even a week and a half ago. Our director of high school, you know, was sort of, you know, navigating that a little with him as they've got a lot of, you know, funds, and that they're absolutely looking at that right now and, you know, wanting to see what opportunities they can make available to their students. I think it just so happens on this particular, you know, agenda they're not there. But, you know, I think back to last year, that was a big piece. I think back to many of our Title I schools for the first time. You know, they were at the elementary level having that first opportunity for overnight, you know, field trips. And so we have an advantage this year. We continue to have those funds available. So, you know, I can absolutely, you know, confirm that, you know, all of our principals are looking at that to make those opportunities available. But in the meantime, yes, this is definitely something that we see as I think we all have a shared priority, you know, on this topic, and it will be something we continue to explore and ensure that, you know, we have that equity piece right for all of our students.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Number 24.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 22-05, designating October 24th through 28th, 2022 as Red Ribbon Week in the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District.
Second. I like to highlight this one. When I first started in PTA, that first job I had was Red Ribbon.
Okay, so my comments are kind of, I guess, more timely. I really appreciate the information that was sent out about fentanyl this week, and I've been reading so many stories about this. One today over at Troy. Last week I read this article that said Marin County, you have a higher chance of death if you're under the age of 60 to die from fentanyl than you do from COVID. And this is a huge epidemic, and I don't see this resolution addressing those current issues. So what I would like to suggest is that we take out, or that we add a couple whereases from the memo that Mr. McAlinden sent out, like a whereas opioid-related overdose deaths in California youth ages 10 through 19 years increased from 2018, 54 total, to 2020, 274 total, making a 407% increase over 2 years, largely driven by fentanyl. And then another one, whereas fentanyl-related overdose deaths in California, ages 10 through 19 years, increased from 2018, 36 total, to 2020, 261 total, a 625% increase. And I did search and try to find more current data on fentanyl and the overdoses, because it's a daily thing. And it's happening daily almost in our community. And I just think we should just add those whereases in there. Yeah. They're taken directly from Mr. McAlinden's thing.
Which ones you are thinking?
Is everybody okay with that?
I think it's perfect
Yep.
to make it relevant to the time frame.
Okay. And then the other thing that I would like to add is in it where it says, be it further resolved. There's nothing in here about education. So where it says students, parents, and staff, I like to add to educate themselves on current drug trends. And then continue participate in efforts to prevent drug and alcohol abuse, and to join citizens statewide in the pledge. Respect yourself, be drug free.
Okay. Educating is good.
I think right now, especially with the changes, education is key. I'd like to change that. And of course, I have one more. And this is just, you're not gonna say anything? And this is just a personal pet peeve of mine. In the 1, 2, 3, 4th. Whereas it says the future of our democracy depends upon having an educational citizenry. I think we should change it to republic. Because we are a republic, it's different than democracy. And I think words have meanings and we should make sure that we are using the right verbiage.
Aren't we a democratic republic?
Yes. Yeah. We're technically, because we pledge allegiance, to the republic of which we stand, So, and a republic is different than a democracy. You can have a democracy where you vote in people to represent a representative democracy, but a republic is different because it protects the rights of the minority. Those inalienable rights. In a pure democracy, without those inalienable rights, whatever the majority says rules, and the minority rights are taken away. But in a republic, the minority is protected. And there's lots of laws that have been overturned and things like that because they weren't protecting the minority. And
Well, we happen to have a historian right next to
I don't
us.
know if I'm a historian or not, but I do have opinions about this.
I know, we had a great debate about this in his office.
Yeah, there's no argument that we're a republic. I won't argue with that. But I mean, to say we're not a democracy is also incorrect. You can have many kinds of republics. You can have an oligarchical republic where the rich and the rich and wealthy are the ones who choose the representatives. You could have all kinds of republics that are not who we are. November, the election day is coming up. It's a big democratic day. And so, again, I have zero issue with the republic. I make that same pledge, I get it. But to say we're not a democracy, I think is highly inaccurate. And so I'll go with whatever the board decides, but I'm very proud of our democracy here, proud of living in a democracy. I believe it says so much of who we are, and our republic could not survive, I think, if we weren't a democracy.
I just feel like our founding fathers did a hybrid, and we should respect that. And, they didn't want a democracy. They came up with a republic, and that's what we are. So it's up to the board what they want to do. That's just one of my pet peeves. So.
I will weigh in with democracy.
I like democratic republic.
How about constitutional republic?
Constitution.
That's really what we are.
Yeah.
I think we're getting into it.
I'm sorry,
Minutia.
having just recently been in Europe, they look at us as a democracy, not as a republic.
But see, I think that's what's wrong, because we use the word democracy, and republic is different. Again, it protects the minority, and it protects our inalienable rights. And that's what sets us aside, and that's, our kids think we're a democracy. And it's just a little different, but that's why I think that words matter, and we should use appropriate words that describe what we are.
Democratic republic is highly accurate.
I'll go with democratic republic. I can live with that.
So democratic republic, I'm seeing 3. Are we going to pass the resolution?
I think that
I was fine with republic, we had 3 for republic.
I think we're losing our way on the meaning at this moment of this, what we're going for in this.
I mean, you can
I
even just
don't
say
want to bog
the
down.
future of our nation, and if we wanna do this, if we're having that issue, just the future of our nation.
Sure.
But this ain't a hill I'm gonna die on right now.
I'm beginning to wonder what we may even have in our books about, using the word democracy. I mean, if we start going that direction, I don't know. I try to think what I have with me to